Good evening, everyone. The date is August 13th. The time is 6 p.m. 2025, and this is the City of Columbus City Council meeting. The first item on the agenda is, or the second item is Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would stand up. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What was that? The third item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and I'd like to change the agenda tonight with the council's permission to move item B, the consent agenda, over to right before D. So we'll go through if you all agree. So I'd like to make a motion. Ron Hanegraaff, move to approve the agenda, moving the consent agenda, item B, after item number C. We have to take a vote on this?
This is Janet, I second.
Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. So we'll go on to the first item, A number 1. We have our Senator Michael Kreun here, a strong supporter of our city, up to give us an update. Thanks for coming tonight, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. You guys hear me all right?
You have to get it really close to your mouth.
Get it closer. How's that?
Perfect.
All right. Thank you again for the invitation to come and present a legislative update to not just the City Council, but to the community of Columbus. Happy to do this every year. A little bit later this year, I'm glad we ran into each other at that event so we could make sure we got this on the agenda. So thank you. I will try to be brief, although that typically doesn't happen, but feel free to interrupt me. It's your meeting, obviously, so you can do that, but I welcome being interrupted with questions. If there's a topic that you're interested in, you don't need to wait till the end. So it was a crazy year at the legislature. This is my first term. Been there for about 2.5 years. So this is my third year going to the Capitol. And just in the time that I've been there, I was talking with somebody who's been at the Capitol a long time. And he said, just so you know, your time in the legislature is not normal. So a lot of things that you almost forget about, some of the crazy things that happen at the beginning of session by the time you get to the end of session. And then, so just to briefly walk you through kind of high level what happened, the budget and that sort of thing. And then I can get into some specific bills that might be of interest to the city. The year, the 2025 session started, which by the way is a budget year. So that is our primary objective when we get there, is to set a 2-year budget, what's called a biennium. When we got there, unfortunately, Senator Kerry Dietzig had passed away prior to session, and the special election hadn't happened yet. So it was a tie in the Senate between Republicans and Democrats. And so one thing that happened too, I guess, since the last time I was here, I was elected to Assistant Minority Leader. So now I'm in leadership within the Senate Republican Caucus. So as part of my job responsibilities were to help negotiate a power sharing agreement at the beginning of session, which we were able to do successfully. And I was happy to be part of that process. So we started out the session with a power sharing, equal committees, co-chairs, until the special election happened, when that restored balance back to the Democrats in the Senate. Now, the House was a completely different story, if you remember, where they got off to a much more rocky start than the Senate did. And there was election contest litigation that resulted in only the Republicans showing up for the first 3 weeks or so of session. And there was litigation about quorum and all sorts of stuff, but it eventually got ironed out, and they eventually ended up in a tie for the entire session. And they had their own version of a power sharing agreement and whole committee chairs and all that sort of thing. But we got a late start because of that in the legislature. Fortunately, we did get a budget passed. It took a special session, but there was no government shutdown. So that's the good news. We fulfilled our basic primary responsibility. But there was lots of other crazy things that happened during the session. And there was the holdover from the felony charge of one member from last year. Then there was a new felony charge by a member in the Senate, followed by an immediate resignation, followed by a special election. And then the trial for the other one happened. There was a conviction and she resigned. So, and then unfortunately, Senator Bruce Anderson passed away after session. And so now we're back having 2 more special elections this fall. It's been a crazy year. And then obviously with the political assassination of Representative Hortman and the attempted assassination of Senator John Hoffman, it isn't normal right now in the Minnesota legislature. But getting to what our purpose was, the budget, the total budget, if you recall the last time I was here, I talked about how the budget went from 52 billion to 72 billion, which is about a 39% increase. A lot of that would have been the surplus, the $18 billion surplus, one-time funding. Now that budget went from 72 billion down to 66.4, which is about an 8% decrease. So some of that was one-time funding not being renewed. So, that's how that came out. The bad news is we still have a structural budget imbalance in this state. What that means is that our projected annual revenue growth is less than our projected annual spending based on existing programs. So what that means is, in simple terms, is that we're spending more money than we're taking in. And so when the budget forecast came out during the session, they were projecting a $6 billion budget deficit in the next biennium. And because of the budget, the 8% decrease and some things that we did this year, that's now down to about a $2.2 billion projected budget deficit going into the next biennium. And so we still have a lot of work to do. And there was some hard decisions that had to get made this year with respect to disability services, nursing homes, and that sort of thing that took a pretty substantial cut. But there's more work to be done when we reconvene for the next budget, which won't be next year. That will be after the elections in 26. When we go in on January 27, we'll start work on the next budget. So that's kind of high level how that played out. So I guess the good in that, from my perspective, and again, I'll try not to be partisan. I'll try to keep this factual as much as I can. But from my perspective, the good in that, we didn't grow government this time. We didn't raise the income tax or the sales tax, which there were plenty of bills out there that would do that. They were talking about putting sales tax on services and that sort of thing. None of those things passed. So that's the good thing. There was going to be a lot of shifts to balance the budget. We're going to do a lot of cost shifts onto counties, which would indirectly hurt Columbus. We were able to stop most of those county cost shifts. So I think that was a good thing. One in particular was some of the new sales tax. They increased the sales tax back in the 23 session. And some of the money that the counties were going to get for transportation, they were going to take that and give it to the Met Council. And Anoka County fought really hard against that. That was a kind of a backroom deal where that was being proposed. And fortunately, that didn't pass. So that's good. I won't get into education, but there was a lot of high profile cuts to transportation and special education services for non-public schools. That didn't pass. So those are some high level good things. Some of the bad, I guess, 8% decrease from the record spending in 24-25 budget. It did hit some programs pretty hard: nursing homes, disability services, transportation. But from my perspective, unfortunately, none of the state agencies took a cut. All of the state agencies either remained unchanged or got more money. So I think if some of those important programs are taking a haircut, I think the state agencies could have as well. So the ugly, there was about $4.2 billion in revenue enhancements to balance this budget. Some people will call them a tax increase, but whatever you want to call them, they were out there. So like I said, not income tax or sales tax, but there's taxes on nursing home facilities, which I didn't support, especially in light of the cuts to the nursing homes. So there's other fee increases and that sort of thing sprinkled throughout the budget to pass it. So one of the things that it isn't directly related to the city of Columbus, but is important to all Minnesotans. One of the bills that I spent a lot of my time this year down at the Capitol was working in a bipartisan manner to establish an Office of Inspector General to combat all the fraud that you've been hearing about in the news. And there was a really heavy bill. We met every Tuesday night, Senator Gustafson and I, and we got House Democrats, House Republicans involved. We brought staff, nonpartisan staff in to help us. We crafted a good bill, went through 11 committee stops, co-presented the bill with Senator Gustafson, made a lot of changes, worked with the agencies to come up with a good bill that would have established an independent office whose sole job would be to look for and prevent and fraud and then prosecute, obviously fraud where it happens. Providers and recipients across all state agencies. So unfortunately, we did get it through the Senate on a broad bipartisan vote, 60-7. We were feeling pretty good about that. Unfortunately, it stalled out in the House and it didn't get brought up for a vote. So that's something I'll be bringing up again next year. Some of the other things that I was not too happy about were kind of the process and the lack of transparency, particularly around special session. A lot of the work that was being done that ultimately was passed into law was done behind closed doors without public input. And I think we as a state need to do better. Another thing that came out of one of those backroom deals was the closure of the Stillwater prison, which I opposed because there wasn't a bill, there wasn't any public hearings. It came completely out of left field in a backroom deal where, okay, we're going to close the state's second largest prison, which is an old facility, but there was no plan in place to replace those beds or, a well thought out deliberative plan on where to put those inmates. And then they didn't consult with the corrections officers or their union either, which I think you really needed to bring the corrections officers and the employees at that prison into the conversation if you're going to make a very monumental shift in our public safety. So we're calling for public hearings, trying to do it kind of the right way after the fact. Now, I always talk about some of my bills that got passed. They're obviously not the ones that make the news a lot of times, but they're important bills. I think I counted at least eight of my bills I got passed into law. Some camera requirements in daycares, some education for new parents on what to look for in infants that might have been abused. This stems from some instances in Blaine that happened at a child care facility, including Representative West's kids. So I was the Senate author that he did all the heavy lifting, but I was happy to get those two bills across the finish line. An agricultural best management practices loan program, which is a really good program that we renew periodically to get more funds in there. Broad bipartisan support. Updates to the Business Corporations Act, which will hopefully make things a little more easier for our small businesses. The real property partition bill, was the chief author of that updated old partition bill that was put into statute in 1905. And this is the first time we've made any changes to it. So that was kind of fun for a real estate lawyer like me to be a part of that. So, and some other ones I won't get into, but data centers were in the news a lot. We repealed the data center sales tax exemption, but then we made up for it by extending the sunset for sales tax exemption IT and equipment for 35 years. And oversimplifying it, that's probably a push. I was hoping we could do better on data centers. They provide a lot of high-paying jobs for those in the trades, a lot of good union jobs, even for electricians and that sort of thing. So, but controversial, kind of a wash, a lot of controversy on that. Transportation bill. Like I said, the cost shift to the Met Council was eliminated. That's good. Driver fees were increased if you fail to show up for a test. That's super a big deal right now. So a bus rapid transit study instead of the Blue Line extension, which I favor. The Blue Line extension is coming. That's a Met Council initiative. And they've already spent over $250 million and not a single shovel of dirt has been done in that project. It's just in planning. It's going to cost about $3.2 billion. And given the Met Council's track record on light rail projects with the Southwest Light Rail Project, you can bet it's going to be north of $5 billion by the time it's over. And it'll probably be 5 to 10 years delayed in getting it done. And it's very frustrating because there's a lot of transportation needs right here in Columbus, in Ham Lake and Plain, in Lexington, the communities that I represent. And we have to go to the legislature and fight tooth and nail to get Hornsby Street, for example, funded, which should be funded by the state for a bunch of reasons that you all know I won't get into right now. And it's frustrating when those things don't happen and that you just see the pervasive wasting of money by the Met Council on light rail projects that are not going to benefit nearly as many people as the critical highway projects that our state is facing right now. So when you're talking about finite dollars, you need to make priorities and you need to get back to basics. What can we do with our public funds that'll benefit the most number of people? And that's my focus on representing my constituents. And so if that means holding Met Council accountable and trying to divert those funds to highway projects in my district, that's what I'm going to do.
Senator, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Can
yes.
you refresh my memory what communities the Blue Line serves?
The proposed Blue Line extension will go from Target Field, and then it'll go through like New Hope and up and eventually into the Brooklyn Park.
Okay.
There's a few communities that I'm missing along the way, but that's generally where it's going to go. It's going to go west and then north up to Brooklyn Park. And I don't favor that. So there's that. Another thing that, and I'm a big supporter of law enforcement, and we desperately needed a new state patrol headquarters. And that got funded this year, $97 million. And on the surface, that's good. But the problem that happened is that they used trunk highway funds to pay for this new state patrol headquarters. And why does that matter? Because trunk highway funds that's a fund that is supposed to be designated for our highways. It's a designated from the gas tax. And in this state, we believe that highway funds should primarily be funded by the gas tax, and that we shouldn't use general fund dollars to fund highway projects, either bonding or the gas tax or some combination or some other things. But, to me, everybody uses the roads. But if you're going to have that be kind of the general attitude on how highways get funded, then you shouldn't raid that fund for anything other than highways. And and I'm glad the state troopers are getting a new headquarters. Don't get me wrong, but this could be a slippery slope where we need to say, no, you do not invade the trunk highway funds for anything. Those funds are too important with all the critical highway projects that we have in this state that we should have found a way to get that into the bonding bill and fund it that way. And again, they dipped into the auto parts extension. Auto parts sales tax is another way that we can get some highway funds that we have. And now it's supposed to be used exclusively for roads and bridges. And they're kind of delaying some of that again and borrowing from it, so to speak. So the erosion happens where they see these pots of money to fund, things that they shouldn't be funding. And I guess the temptation is too great for some to not dip into it. There's that NLX train to Duluth that has been discussed, which obviously I don't support. There was about 170 million in that account. They used some of it to fund, get this, unemployment insurance for seasonal workers for schools. And so I was a little bit mixed on that because I don't like that. I don't want the NLX train to get funded. And so if we can divert money away from that fund, that's good. But I think that should have gone to highway or other transportation needs rather than to education. So that was a weird thing. And they left $108 million in the NLX. They're keeping it on life support is what they're doing. We wouldn't have had any cuts at all to transportation or in any of our highway initiatives if we'd have used that NLX money for transportation. But it's still sitting there, 108 million. So it'll be very interesting in future sessions to see what happens with that 108 million, because I don't think a train to Duluth is going to get built, nor should it be. The greenhouse gas emissions policies that were enacted in 23, we tried to scale that back because it's making all of our highway projects more expensive. We were able to nibble around the edges, so to speak, but unfortunately nothing substantive there. That's kind of Anoka County was very concerned in that the state dictated how to spend a lot of their transportation dollars from the sales tax to the Rum River pedestrian bridge. We don't want to get in the habit of the state telling the county on how to use those funds. I think that's bad precedent. Anoka County didn't like it, but that did get through. So, there was some handshake projects in the transportation bill that are not named in the bill, but some highway projects in Lakeville and Maple Grove and a few others. I don't think that's a good practice. It's been done for many years. And make no mistake, if I can get a project for my district done that way, I'll do it. I'll do it however I can. But broadly speaking, that's not a good way to govern, and we should get away from that. And if we're going to have earmarks, we should list them in the bill. So that's transportation. There's more. I'll move on. The tax bill that I talked about, the data center stuff. There was also an increase to the cannabis tax from 10% to 15%. And that's in addition to the general state sales tax plus the 1% metro sales tax. So in the end, that'll be now on cannabis, 22.8.75% sales tax on cannabis. So they're legalizing it, but I don't think the black market's going to go away with a tax rate like that. It eliminated the local government cannabis aid out of that sales tax revenue. So that was unfortunate. Not the right direction on that. So I'll move from the tax bill to the bonding bill. This was bittersweet because objectively speaking, this was a good bonding bill. It was a nuts and bolts bonding bill. It was getting back to basics on infrastructure, things that should be in the bonding bill. There's no art museums, no performing arts center, no cultural centers like you've seen in the past. Just roads, bridges, clean water, public safety infrastructure that benefits all Minnesotans. So it was lean, kind of no nonsense, nuts and bolts bonding bill focused on core government, state government functions. So objectively speaking, it was a good bonding bill. It was very small, only 700 million. But there was some talk of having a much larger bonding bill. So this funded clean drinking water and wastewater projects, lead pipe replacement funding, roads, bridges, dams, asset preservation, prevents losing matching federal funds on a lot of projects. It'll have thousands of good paying construction jobs. But the bittersweet part was there wasn't a lot in it in my district. I voted for it. I supported it because it was a good bill. But the National Sports Center in Blaine got $5 million, but they're a state agency, and it was for deferred maintenance, critical deferred maintenance. But other than that, they didn't do any earmarks. And so while the Hornsby Street project in Columbus was in the discussions and previous bills, it wasn't here because we weren't doing any earmarks or legislative directed appropriations, if you want to call them that. Because the bonding bill was only $700 million, there can be another one next year. And that can be up to 1.2 billion. And I don't know if that will happen, but it's on the table. But I can tell you if they're going to have a bonding bill next year, very likely going to be earmarks in it. And I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that priorities from my district get included in there if we're going to have one. So cannabis law changes. I don't know if you guys are entertaining any licenses right now on that, but it was a lot of changes. If you are, don't take my legislative update, consult with your lawyer on all the requirements, because there's things in there relating to retail licensing, event approvals, building and zoning compliance, delivery endorsements, event sampling, licensing applications, background checks, expungement provisions, all of these things that the cities are going to have to navigate through. But high level, the state is dictating and mandating on local units of government how they do this. They're giving you almost no discretion, very little discretion. And so I fought for more local control, but that is not the public policy that the people that wanted cannabis legalized wanted. They wanted state mandates because they didn't trust cities to implement them if they were to be given any discretion. So that's something you're going to want to stay on top of. There's so many other things. I think I've been talking long enough. I can talk about lots of other bills, any questions that you have. I'll just say in closing that it was a mixed bag this session. I'm disappointed that we couldn't get more local projects funded, but dollars were really tight this year. But next year, we'll be back at it right again. And depending on what your needs are, we'll have to meet again before a session and come up with a game plan on how to get some of those key priorities for Columbus funded. So with that, I'll take any questions, talk about any bills that I didn't touch on or whatever you want to talk about.
Senator, I got a quick one. So we go down there and testify for the bonding bill or our Hornsby Street. Do we have to return down there, or will they remember that issue?
It's a good question, and I should have mentioned that. We did get a hearing on the Hornsby Street project, and we got a hearing on fiscal disparities. We've had hearings. This one that you're referring to on Hornsby Street. So how that works is because this was the first year of a biennium, that bill will still be valid or in play next year. So we don't need to introduce a new bill. We wouldn't necessarily have to have a new hearing. Whether we want to put in a request for a new hearing will depend on some discussions that I will have with the committee chairs to see what they want. If they're like, yeah, if you want it funded, we want to have a hearing, then we'll have another hearing. If they're like, no, if you've already had a hearing, you don't need to have another hearing, then there would be no reason to have you guys come down to St. Paul again. So we'll have to play that one by ear.
So so new funding could come in then, right? I mean, new people could come up and request new cities, so they add to the list, right?
So yeah, that's true. So our bill is still operative going into next year, but we can introduce new bills too. So if something were to happen with Hornsby Street and you find funding for it from some other means, we could come up with a new priority project and submit a new bill, get a hearing, and be in play for the bonding bill next year.
I want to thank you again for getting us that hearing and for both, I think, the transportation and the bonding and whatever. That was, I think we made a dent a little.
It was well received, and I would say if there would have been earmarks in the bonding bill, Hornsby Street almost certainly would have been in it. But the way it played out, no earmarks, no Hornsby Street, but we'll hopefully rectify that next year. And I should add too, I talked a lot about sports betting in both of my previous legislative updates, nothing really on sports betting. It was introduced, there was some committee hearing or two, but it didn't go anywhere. So that's good news for Columbus. No news is good news on that. And so until the bills or the political climate changes so that running aces can be treated fairly along with the tribal casinos, no news is good news on that front.
Sounds great. You have anything, Jenny? Scott?
I have a quick question, maybe not so quick. So when you talk about the overall budget, what I haven't been able to get my head wrapped around, but maybe nobody has, is what the impact on the federal level is going to have on the state's budget picture. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I do have that in my notes, and I was thinking somebody would ask that. It's kind of a big thing, and I felt like I was rambling too long, so I didn't go into it. But yeah, there's what do they call it? The big beautiful bill.
I call it something else, but
the
we'll not
federal
go there.
level. I think some of the components in that are things that people favor quite a bit and make a lot of common sense. But and I won't get into the partisan things, but it could have an impact on state and county budgets. And so we were talking about SNAP and Medicaid primarily are the two big issues that we need to look at. The governor was contemplating perhaps doing a special session this fall to deal with that. It sounds like he's not going to do that. If there's any immediate, a lot of these effective dates in this bill are pushed out so far that there's really no reason to have a special session in my view. And we still do have a fund balance if it were needed. But the effective dates are pushed out quite a ways. So it does get pretty complicated, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am, a master on a lot of these issues or what's going to happen. But SNAP is currently it's 100% federally funded, now up to 15% funded by the states based on an error rate calculation. And so that is good in theory. We don't want states making errors that are costing money, and this would incentivize the states to not make those errors. So this is a good provision in theory. The problem, the concern is that building out the infrastructure to catch those errors is going to cost money that isn't budgeted for. And so the counties are very worried about that being an unfunded mandate on them that could increase property taxes. And if there's one thing that when I go around all over my district that is nearly universal is that property taxes are too high. And so we have to be really sensitive about these cost shifts to counties and these unfunded mandates to counties because that could result in higher property taxes. Same with school districts as well, and cities for that matter. So if there's ever anything the state is doing that is causing, underfunded mandates, those are things that you bring me into the loop, and I can advocate against those because those could result in property tax increases, and we need to be really careful about that. The other thing, Medicaid work requirements are being added, and that again is a good thing that a lot of people support. And we should be requiring working requirements for certain people that are capable of work in order to be eligible for Medicaid. I support that. But again, the counties are in charge of verification, and now eligibility assessments will be every 6 months rather than every year. So that's another added cost. You know, will the counties have to hire more people to do this work? No, these are things that we can probably address at the state level, and I think we will, and I look forward to being part of those conversations. So it's a concern that we need to keep our eye on, but there's also a lot of good things in the bill as well that I won't get into right now. But yeah, need to be cognizant of those issues and make sure that they don't result in property tax increases. That'll be my focus.
My second question has to do with it didn't pass, but there was some interest in the state mandating zoning decisions for the city. So you can imagine how we would feel about that. So what's your prediction on that front?
Yeah, I don't have to guess how Columbus and Ham Lake are going to feel about those things in my district. And that's a very controversial set of legislation, but it's interesting because it has bipartisan support and bipartisan opposition. It's not so much the party you're in, which is how most of the things down there shake out. Mm-hmm. To be fair, the reason that the legislators are introducing, and there's 3 different bills, by the way, but they all kind of get to the same thing, which is housing right now is more unaffordable than it's ever been. And a lot of our young people are finding it increasingly difficult to buy a house and live the American dream. And so what can we do about to make housing more affordable other than your kind of subsidized housing or rent controls, things that have been proven that are not effective. And so that's and some people think that unnecessary or overly restrictive zoning ordinances, and not just zoning ordinances, but building requirements in the name of beautification or whatever artificially keeps home prices high. And so they're trying to get at that. But the problem with that is it guts local control. It guts communities' ability to kind of shape their community in a way that makes sense for them. And so I'm very sensitive to that. And so, I'm assuming all 4 of my cities oppose it. And most city councils do oppose it. And so from my perspective, I don't favor these specific pieces of legislation. I think we need to have more local control. But I also don't think it's acceptable to just sit and do nothing about the housing prices. And so, I look forward to being part of the conversation to try to find a middle way that doesn't take away cities' zoning rights and their ability to kind of govern the city and shape the city the way they want, while still trying to do some things to get housing prices under control.
Thanks.
Rob? Yeah.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being here, Senator.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I have one other comment that I wanted to share with you. So we had our Night to Unite gathering last week, and Mayor was at one house, and the Lackners, Tom and Mary Lackner, who you will remember, wanted to make sure that I knew how helpful you were in their never-ending quest to subdivide their land, and how you really stepped up to the plate and set up a meeting with the DNR to help them wade through the I don't remember if it was exotic species or endangered species, plant species, where they wanted to put a driveway. So you saved the day for them. Thank you very much. They had nothing but good things to say, and they wanted to make sure that their things got back to you. So
appreciate the kind words. It was a pleasure to help the Lakeners, and they were in a bit of a predicament, and the DNR was not treating them fairly. So I'm thankful that the DNR agreed to meet and was reasonable in that we were able to come to a resolution that will allow them to do something that any property owner should be able to do. So, and while protecting the environment, there's ways to protect the environment in some of these rare plants, while still being practical and reasonable, and giving property owners some options that are affordable.
yeah.
And so that wasn't happening in that case. So I'm glad we got it to a place where everybody came out a winner on that. And so
Yeah.
I'm happy that I was happy to help them. And that kind of goes to all of your residents here in Columbus you can reach out to me. And I know I say this every time, but a lot of people don't realize but do it. If you have a state issue, or even if it's some other issue, I may not be able to help you, but I can maybe help you get pointed to the right people who can help you. And if it's with a state agency, like it was in that case, I'm happy to assess the situation and see what I can do to help.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming here tonight, Senator, and dittos with what Janet said. I think we got enough buttercups. I don't know what that tree was. But we had a buttercup tree, didn't we?
Butternut.
Butternut.
We had a butternut that we had to do some
That
mitigation
held us up
for a
for a
road.
long time. Go on.
Did you know you have to do DNA analysis to make sure that it truly is?
You
I had
told
no
me that-
idea.
You told me that last time.
Yeah.
I'll have to maybe introduce a bill or something about DNA analysis for trees. I don't know. Never thought I'd be in saying that. Wasn't
Yeah.
on my bingo card, but
Can't predict these things.
yeah. Yeah, happy to help. Thank you for inviting me. I'm sure I forgot something.
We know
And I
how to,
wanted
we know
to
how to
say-
find you.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We'll stay in for your residents. I feel like we have a good partnership here. I look forward to working with the newer members to just keep those lines of communication open. See if I can be of assistance to the city of Columbus where issues arise. And as you're learning, some issues take longer than others to resolve, but we have to be persistent, and that's kind of the name of the game.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to go down to item C, presentations and items for council action. Number one is the public forum. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to confront a statement or anything to the city council for open forum? Seeing no one, we'll go online. Anybody online want to talk on open forum? Hearing none, we're going to close the open forum and go to item number 2 under C. It's public hearing ordinance 14-320, restricted hours for sprinkling. You want to explain that, Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As part of the city's most recent water supply plan submitted to and approved by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, we are required to update our critical water deficiency ordinance, specifically Chapter 14-320, restricted hours for sprinkling, and that should align with the current DNR model ordinance language and conservation practices. The attached red line version of the ordinance in your packet reflects the necessary changes to bring our ordinance into compliance with the DNR requirements and ensure consistency with the best practices for water conservation. Amendment of Ordinance 14-320 as exhibited in Attachment 2 is required for approval to increase our DNR water appropriation permit 2009-0641 from 30 million gallons per year to 50 million gallons per year. This increase is necessary to accommodate a potential increase in the 16 million gallons per year in pumping demand that we expect to experience in the next few years. Our current withdrawal rate is 24 million gallons, so this is going to be a critical need to ensure that we continue to have growth in the community and be able to supply them with water. At this time, staff recommends opening a public hearing on this matter. And at the conclusion of the public hearing and there being no issues of concern, consider approving the amendment to Ordinance 14-320 as presented in Attachment 2 of this report.
Okay, so if we're opening a public hearing, does Aaron read published? Does he have to read the published?
No, it does
No.
not.
He doesn't?
No, you just have to approve the use of it at the end of the process, but you don't have to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have to open it up for the public though?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have any questions among the council?
We need to open the public hearing first.
First, okay. I'll open a public hearing to the public if anybody has any statements on this ordinance adjustment for 14-320. Want to come up to the microphone, give testimony? Nobody in the audience is coming forth. How about online? Anybody online? Hearing none, we're going to close the public hearing. Any discussion from the council? Any questions? Attorney's got one.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I just have a few cleanup items that I can give to the administrator, and they're non-substantive, so I don't think there'll be any problem. I won't read them unless you'd like me to. It's really numbering, so it matches our system within the city code.
Anybody have any issues with that? Rob?
No, I don't, but I do have a question on this. So is this for just public utilities or is it for private wells as well?
Public utilities, area service only, it does not affect private
Doesn't
systems.
affect a private well.
Correct.
So this is Janet. Then I think we need to change some wording in here to reflect that because it does not. It makes it look like it's everybody.
It says public health and wells. So to me, wells, just like you're saying, Janet, that's what prompted the question is wells could be any well.
And it would probably be good to get that clarification. The wells issue is what's stated in our ordinance is the title of it. Again, though, it does not apply to this, but it wouldn't hurt to add that clarification.
And I don't know if your changes, you might want to read your changes because I had some on the ordinance too. Is that what yours are? So we might have the same. So you go first.
Okay. Mr. Mayor and Council, just as a matter of usage, I believe throughout the city code, we capitalize city to refer to the city of Columbus. In the next paragraph down from A, locally, I've stricken locally because that's the only place that we can act. The city can act. So I'm not sure what locally is modifying, so I just struck it. In section B, following B, we wouldn't use letters, we would use numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's the formatting in our code. Again, I struck locally again in the next paragraph. On the next page, I think it was a typo, I changed the comma after D to a period. And in 3, I just put a space between 3 and the word failure. There's a little bit of formatting that can be fixed there as well.
I didn't have any of those, so mine are different.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. So like you, Bill, that second paragraph that started with locally, I felt like that paragraph belonged after section B going down A, B, C, D, E. Because you're talking in the first paragraph about the governor declaring a critical water deficiency, but then after section B and with the numbers, then you're talking locally about being able to do that. So it seemed to me that it made it confusing to me that we were talking about a statewide mandate, then a local, then a city council action, then a local again. I would organize that differently so it made better sense. And I think that some of the language that we use in some of these sections where it says, for instance, in section B, where it says the mayor shall take such action as is reasonably practicable to inform the general public. Well, gosh, if we're passing something that says you can't do this, and if you do, we're going to have restrictions, we better be more specific about how we're going to let the public know. So I would use language more in line with, like we do with our public hearings, like we would put it in all the places and notify the public in the same way that we notify a public hearing, because this is something that it's not just letting them know, it's letting them know that if they don't abide by it, there are repercussions. So I feel like sticking it up on our board out here isn't good enough. And so there's several sections where it uses that kind of language. And I think then one section that says that, that we would post it in a way that we normally do in public places. So I just would tighten that up and be consistent in all of the different places. And then I think one question that I had is where it says that spraying of paved surfaces except where necessary for public health and safety. So if we have a business that has dust mitigation as a condition, are they able to do that under this council action, or do they? I'm just curious, like how broad that goes. for whoever wants to answer it.
Which section?
So I'm in BB. So this is, the governor makes a declaration and then we're supposed to enforce these things. One of them says ban washing or spraying of paved surfaces except when necessary for public health and safety. So if you have, equipment share that decides that they're going to use water to keep their dust down, that's their dust mitigation plan. Are they no longer able to do that under this declaration, or any of the other, Running Aces or any of the other places that use water trucks to keep the dust down?
I'll defer to, I'll let you know my opinion and let Bill correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be addressing issues of public health or safety. That would not be a non-critical use of water, in my opinion.
It would not be a so I'm here, that's two negatives I'm not following.
It would, in other words, it says in this that the governor has the power to restrict the prioritize the essential water use and protect the community's water supply and prohibit the non-critical use of water, which would like car washing or sprinkling of lawns. So if it's a dust requirement issue, to me, that's an essential use of water.
Okay.
And I'll let Bill opine on
I
that.
think that's correct.
Okay. And then, and I think as we talked about whether or not this applies only to properties that are on utilities, it would seem that that clarification could be made under what's now BA. You would just say in the areas of the city serviced by public utilities. And then that way it's really clear that people who have private wells aren't under that mandate, if that's really true, that it's only on public utilities.
Well, the city cannot regulate private wells. That's an issue of the DNR. We have no jurisdiction over that.
Well, this is the state declaring a critical water deficiency, so I don't know if that's different.
I don't know.
So we should probably get that figured, because I think we should be clear in this ordinance whether or not, in the case of this governor declaring it, whether or not that means everybody or only those on public utilities. It'd be an awful hard thing for us to enforce if it was everybody, but.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the intent. We will check that out to make sure that's the case, but we would have no ability to do any enforcement on public wells or private systems. Public wells, yes, because that's what supplies our water, but private systems would be not included in this emergency declaration. And we can get a statement to back that up.
So does this need to come back to us? Because there's some open-ended questions here, or, I
know there's a timing issue, right? You're trying to get a water appropriation permit.
Correct. Yeah, that's part of it. We wanted to make sure this doesn't impede getting the water appropriation permit.
it looks like we were supposed to do this in 2019, so I'm thinking it's not quite as time sensitive as what you're saying.
Well, the reason it's time sensitive is we're applying for the permit to increase our withdrawal permit from the DNR. The other thing is the ordinance was meant to be in compliance with the state plan. So that's where the timing issue is. And what is that timing issue, Brian?
So just let me interact. It was supposed to be done in 2019 when we did our last water appropriation increase, and that got missed.
Yes,
So now
I see
it's a
that.
bit more time sensitive now.
Yes.
Fortunately, they didn't, for us, that they didn't look back at it and say, how come you didn't do that? But now they know we didn't. So I think now we need to do our due diligence and make it right.
So what's our deadline?
Well, we did apply for the appropriation permit amendment, and it will be issued as soon as it practically can. I think tomorrow is the end of the review period. So anytime after tomorrow, they may be able to issue the permit, but there'll probably be a condition on there that it's subject to the appropriation of the water declaration.
I guess my question is, if one of the conditions is we have to have an ordinance, I think we better get the wording right. That's so, and I think there's some questions about what the wording should be, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
It's up to the council. I mean, you're passing this ordinance, so if you think that it needs to be cleaned up as a council, then that should be done.
Brian, do you think it's just notification to the DNR that this has been considered by council? There needs to be some amendments and cleanup of some language in it, and we can have this back to them in 2 weeks to be appropriate for their permit review and issuance?
I certainly can submit that message, yes.
Sounds good to me.
I'm going to make one other note. So regarding the distinction between wells and municipal water, so in several places it refers to, or a couple places it refers to municipal water. I think if we just use that term throughout consistently, then that denotes the water that's provided through the city.
Right.
I think that's a term of art also in the permitting world, it's municipal water.
This is Jenny. Can I ask that municipal water be just added to the title under section 14-320? So if residents are reviewing this, they don't get confused.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Would you repeat that, please?
This is Jenny. I asked that the words municipal water be added to the title for restricted hours for sprinkling under section 14-320. The title municipal water be added so that residents are not confused if they do have wells, so they don't have to read through the entire document.
So it could be, excuse me, this is Janet. So it could be something like restricted hours for sprinkling using municipal water. I mean, if we know that that's truly what this is referring, I think that's still an open question.
Well, I think that definitely is the intent because it's tied to our water appropriation permit, which is for municipal water.
Okay, all right, good.
Yep. That part I think is relatively clear.
Okay.
So we're going to hold this over till next council meeting?
And we can make those changes and bring it back then.
Do we have to close out the public hearing then, or?
I think you did.
We already did.
You know what I mean? We closed it, but we don't have to bring it up again.
No, these are changes that are not substantive, but important.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have just one quick question, relatively minor, under BE, forbidden of washing vehicles or mobile equipment, and then it gives some other language in there. Does that include commercial car washes and truck washes?
Yes.
That was going to be my question, is how is this going to affect that new mother truck wash? If this is put into place, will they be shut down?
Yes.
There's an exception for public health, safety, and welfare. So obviously, if the vehicles get so dirty that they're putting mud on the road, I think you could thread a needle there. So the facilities that are on the freeway, that are washing big vehicles that go on the highways,
Per se, because of bug splatter or whatever maybe.
Well, yeah, and if you can't see through the windshield, or if you're dropping mud on the highways, I think that's what the exception is for.
Okay.
That's how I read it.
I just want to make sure they were covered, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Counselor, do we need to add any more specific language to that so there's no question about the interpretation, or are we good?
I think we're good. I'm assuming that these A, B, C, D, E can't come right from the model that the state wants to see. So I wouldn't want to change that too much because the state wants to see these prohibitions in writing. That's how I'm reading it.
Right.
We finished with that topic? Bill, nothing else?
I'm good.
Okay, we'll go on to item number 3, the tennis court project bids.
Yes, we've had this discussion at a council meeting before, a park board meeting, but the results of these discussions was there was some more information that was requested. One of these was a survey. The survey was conducted, and the park board heard public discussion on the tennis court project and discussed those comments along with the bid options at the July 15th, 2025 meeting. The park board was informed that there was a survey in progress to gauge the interest in the use of the facility and overlay options for tennis and pickleball use. The park board delayed the project and option recommendations until those survey results were available for their review. The survey results were completed on July 30th, 2025, and are exhibited in attachment 3 of your packet. The Park Board discussed the survey results at a special meeting on August 4th, 2025, and voted to recommend that City Council approve layout plan alternate 2, alternate bid 1 in the Bolton Mink base bid and alternate plan. The vote of the recommendation was 4-1. The city had 45 days to award or reject project bids and opened this bid on June 17th, 2025. The contractor agreed to extend the offer deadline to August 31st to allow the time needed to evaluate the survey information and other discussion on the possibility of expanding the scope of the proposal for a future project. Should the construction contract be approved for Goodmanson Construction, the project could be substantially completed by October 2025. As stated in the previous reports, the Park Capital Fund has $79,316 remaining in this account. However, the cost for the project, while under the city engineer's estimate of $126,000 for alternate bid number 1, created a deficit of $47,184 for the project funding. Should council consider approving this project, this deficit gap could be transferred from the city general fund to cover this difference. As has been previously discussed, city council could use the proceeds from the sale of a publicly owned property that has a potential value exceeding this amount to reimburse the general fund for the transfer. Should the sale of this property not occur or fall short of the amount needed for the transfer reimbursement, the city could also consider the use of park dedication fees that could be generated from the sale of a city property adjacent to and north of Caribou Coffee for a market rate project for reimbursement of use of general funds transferred to the tennis court project, or use the transfer from the general funds to the park's capital funds as an investment in park infrastructure with no obligation for repayment. In the case presented above, the use of city general funds, either temporarily or permanent, will be required to provide the gap funding for this project. Other funding sources to supplement a general fund transfer could include $30,000 of unspent monies allocated in the 2025 budget for the City Hall generator purpose. The Park Board recommends that City Council approval of layout plan alternate 2, alternate bid 1 is presented in the Bolton Mink base bid and alternate plan and the $126,500 from Goodman's Construction and the sources of funds required to cover the deficit gap between the project bid and the current park capital funds available for this work. So before you have a motion that recommends approval of the bid using the current park capital funds, $48,000 to cover the deficit gap. That would be essentially reimbursed from an interfund loan from either the sale of a city-owned property that's under consideration or park dedication fees generated in the sale of another potential city parcel.
A lot of talking. Just so the council knows that there's some items that weren't really decided on, and this also was adding a fence in between the 2 pickleball courts, which is going to increase that 47,000?
Yeah. I would just add that we do that as a change order, if that's the wish to include that. And then we can figure out what the cost is and do an additional transfer with whatever that cost was, which should be nominal compared to where we are with the deficit gap now, and then just do that transfer at that time of that additional amount. The reason I ask is I did get a letter from the project manager from Bolton Mink for this project and said the contractor's getting very nervous and is about ready to back out of his bid extension offer. So whatever we do, we need to make that tonight. We can figure out the other change order addition of that separation fence once this is awarded.
I have one other question, maybe you, Jack, or for Jim. Does this tennis courts and all that come in different colors? So did they offer us different colors, or you?
They do offer different colors. We've just always used, I think it's green and, I don't know, white and yellow or something over there, but
I think it's red.
Like Linwood has some maroon color. I mean,
I don't know that we specified a color when we did it. We just said that we were going to paint it. So, I mean, if somebody has a color scheme they want,
Well, we got two members.
I don't know that that matters at this point. So cost is the cost.
That's what I figured. Yeah. I don't know. We got two park board members, the chairman, Brad, Steve.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the color, and it was my assumption that we'd probably go with that two-tone green. Right now, it's a green and then a different shade of green that outlines the court. So if there's someone who wants a different color and it's not a cost driver, that would be fine by the board, I think, Stephen. I think the real driver here is to get the thing to a place where it's a good, safe, playable surface. Because if you walk that court, there's some really big cracks in it. And we talked about repairing it, and Jim has talked to contractors and they said they can repair it, but they can't guarantee it's going to last more than a year or two and those cracks are going to come back. As far as the fence in between the two pickleball courts, actually we talked about that at the meeting. And as we walked out, even Jim, we talked about, if that becomes an issue, maybe putting a netting in between at a lower cost. I think the reason we stayed away from that fence is we're concerned about cost in general. And, we opted for two pickleball courts and a tennis court for a couple of reasons. One mainly is from public input from the survey. The other was it's not a significant cost driver between the format of two tennis courts and the two pickleball courts and a tennis court. So I don't think a 6-foot fence in between the pickleball things would be a huge cost driver, but it's certainly going to be a few $1,000s. So anyway, we're here tonight to see if you have any questions and, looking for your support on this.
When it comes to color, I noticed that the new ones are blue. Okay. I don't know if it's a time thing, a generation thing, or what. But you look at them, the new courts, to make it look newer, maybe that's an option. I don't know. That's what I look at. I noticed Belt Park, you look at Hugo, they're all blue. Fenway's blue. And I don't know if they just got away from the green or
Sherwin-Williams had a good sale on it. I'm not sure. I think, that's something that you could kick back to us and we could talk about. That's probably something that can come in later in the process. I mean, it's, that's the last thing they do, right? And we're going to have a meeting before that. I would guess if you want to look at different colors, we have to look at different costs then. I don't have a clue.
I would think we would want to know the contractor as soon as possible on the colors because they'll probably have to do some ordering of materials. And we all know there can be issues with that in today's current market for procurement of those paints and sealants.
Yeah, and to delay this over a color would not. I wouldn't want to do that, obviously. So if it's green and we're locked in at green, that's where my head's at. But if we want to look at a different color and it's blue, does it cost more and doesn't delay it?
I don't know how it could cost more. I mean, whatever. They put it in the asphalt when it comes in, right? I mean, it's not out there with a brush painting it color.
No, it's painted.
It is?
Yeah,
Oh.
it's painted.
Squeegeed on, actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I wonder, this is Janet, I wonder if the blue is because if people are colorblind, it's usually a red-green color blindness. So if you use a different color, they'll be able to distinguish it better. Just curious whether that might be the reason of the switch for the color.
I think it's a trend.
it might be a trend. Yeah.
I think it is more too because the lines that mark the court are in white. So it really is not going to matter what color it is to somebody that's colorblind as long as the striping and the layout of the pickleball court and the tennis court is done in a material color that's different so they can distinguish between that.
And again, from a park board perspective, the assumption we had was it was going to stay the same.
You got a comment?
Yeah, I guess if we were to change it, if there was no cost factor, possibly making it maroon to kind of fit with the school trend of maroon and gold.
That's an odd option, yeah.
but I'm fine with green. I just want to see it get fixed
Yeah,
and
that's right.
get used.
And, you know,
Well, we got the dugouts coming in too. They might be maroon on top.
It's kind of where I was going with the softball association using it and,
Yeah, the maroon.
you know,
Well, that's another issue, that color thing.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor, according to our friend Google,
We're looking at the same.
blue is often associated with calmness and focus, which can be beneficial to players while playing the game. It offers a good visual separation from the common yellow and white pickleball colors to ensure that players can follow the ball's trajectory.
Yeah, I see that blue is offering a high contrast against the yellow ball, and the green being a non-traditional grass court.
Like Wimbledon.
Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Well, I like to be calm, so whatever. I guess the main issue is where we get the money from, right, Jack?
That's correct. And again, if we do this, it would be the approval of the project, but also conditioned on the transfer of the remaining balance of approximately $48,000 to cover that and how we're going to reimburse it. And the two recommendations here, or the one recommendation, would be to reimburse it from the sale of the city property, that's the Hidden Park property, or from the park dedication fees, which will be generated from the sale of another parcel, whichever comes first.
Any discussion on that? I think it's like Brad and Steve say out there, we got to get it done. So where we get the money, as long as we pay it back, and sounds like park funds to go to park funds. So I'm all for that. Any other questions? Well, I think you got one written up. I'll make a motion then. I move to approve the tennis court improvement project for alternate bid. Isn't it 2?
No, it's alternate bid 1.
Bid 1? Oh, the bid in amount of
It's
1.
Plan 2. Plan 2, bid 1.
I'll start over then. I move to approve the tennis court improvement project for alternate bid 1 in the amount of $126,500 and interfund loan in the amount of $48,000 to cover the funding gap between the bid costs and the funds available in the park capital funds for this project. Furthermore, the interfund loan will be reimbursed from the sale of proceeds of Hidden Park property or park dedication fees generated from the sale of city parcel 24-32-22-11-0011, period.
This is Jenny, I second.
We got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? Comments, questions? Having none, Jenny, you want to vote?
Sorry, this is Jenny. I have one question. What did we decide about the paint color? I wanted to clarify, do we need to have a confirmation on that?
We'll let the park board do that.
Okay.
Well, and what we need to do is I need to contact Mr. Pomeroy with Bolton and Mink tomorrow and tell him we approved the authorization of the bid. So if we're going to do that, we need to decide on a color as soon as possible. I think the contractor, the sooner he knows that, the better off we're going to be.
Jack, is that something we could do without having a special meeting? Can we do that via email?
If you want to send me a recommendation on the color, go right ahead.
I'll make a recommendation on the blue. How about the park board?
It's on you. That's good. Blue. It's good blue.
Oh, wait.
We might have to change the trash can.
No, maybe I take that back. I think
Oh my
maroon is the
gosh.
best, baby. I'll just say.
Wow.
Now it's a real.
You're the wrong one to make this recommendation.
Well, what's your opinion on it?
I really don't care. I think you should let the park board decide.
The one thing about maroon is all these courts are two-toned. So you've got the playing surface, the in bounds is a shade and the out of bounds is a different shade.
Right.
I don't know how you do that with maroon. I guess I don't know.
Gold,
Maroon and gold.
or at least the lines are gold.
Is it calming?
It is if you go to Forest Lake
Tennis. Yeah.
or Columbus.
Council, do you want to make that subject to the being cost neutral? So that
Yes.
not-
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Throw in the stipulation that it's no added cost to move from green to an alternate color.
But you need to know by tomorrow. Is that what you're saying, Jack?
I wouldn't say we have to know by tomorrow, but I think we should be able to provide that to the contractor within a week.
Can we just turf this back to the park board and let them decide what color they want it to
Yeah.
be? That's what I would say.
Mhm.
give them something to do.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, you all did the heavy lifting on this.
Yeah.
All right, I'll send out an email to the group, and Jack, I'll be talking to you, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
So we have 3 to choose from, it sounds like, green, blue, or,
Yeah, the traditional, the blue and the Forest Lake colors.
the calming blue.
the calming
Blue.
blue, yes.
That answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Any other questions? Having none, we'll take a vote.
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. So the motion passes unanimously. So it's up to the park board.
I would like to say thank you. We've been trying to work on some of these things for quite a while, and it's good to get a nice win. And I will make just this statement too, that probably next year we'll be coming back and talking about replacing a playground set that's really deteriorating quite quickly. And unfortunately, the company went out of business and we can't fix it. And that's going to be a big ticket item. That's probably going to be outside of our current funding levels as well. So, but we're taking the win for 2025, and we're getting maybe we should do a multicolored one. Tennis courts and pickleball court. No, we won't. We'll come back with something, one of the 3 color schemes. And again, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Brad, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to your dedication to that park board too, both of you.
And for really doing the work to survey the public. And you did a lot of work to get input, and I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Well, we've had a good year. We're going to get some dugouts, and we're going to get a new tennis court. So
That's good.
all good. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go on to item number 4, the Planning Commission report and approval request. Rob?
Yeah, so it was a real quick meeting last week. Ran through it pretty quick. Talk about the Hidden Park Amendment to the comp plan. All commissioners voted in favor, aye of that. The Northwest Quad Comp Plan Amendment, again, all unanimous, voting aye. And then the other kind of thing that Eleanor brought up was there some conversation around residents wanted higher fences, and almost fences as high as what sounded to be like sound wall along higher traveled areas, as well as arterial roads. They're looking for taller fences. So it was a thing that was brought up, and it was more for just something to think on in their spare time. Am I correct, Jack, on that one? We really took no action on it.
That's correct.
Like I said, fairly quick meeting. I believe everyone was here from the council, and they voted all aye to end the meeting. So, questions at all?
No, I think
Like
we're
I
all
said,
there.
We're here, so.
So you want to make a motion on item A, or?
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
It has nothing to do with your report, but on page 41 of the memo, on the top, where it says the city of Columbus purchased Northwest Quad I-35 in 2018. I'm pretty sure it wasn't 2018. Was it 2008 that we purchased that
It
land?
was earlier
Yeah.
than 18 for sure.
So I get the date right in the memo. That's all I'm asking. I know it's not 2018.
Now, you would be correct, and it would have been several years prior to that.
Probably 08.
That's what I'm thinking. I think it might just be a typo and it should have been 08, but double check. That's all.
Okay.
So I, Rob Bush, move to approve to submit the Hidden Park Comprehensive Plan rezoning amendment to the Metropolitan Council to change the rezoning of parcel 15-32-22-23-0008 from park to rural residential.
This is Janet, I second.
We have a motion. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? Questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Jen
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
and Ron, aye. It passes unanimously. Want to say B? Rob, or?
Yeah, so motion I, Rob Bush, move to submit the Northwest Quad Comprehensive Plan for rezoning amendment to the Metropolitan Council to change of the zoning of Block 2-Lot 1 from general commercial to mixed use high density.
So this is Janet, I second.
We got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any questions? Any comments? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, I.
Scott, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. Passes unanimously. We'll go on to item number 5, Personnel Committee Report and Approval Request, City Administrator Review Policy and Procedure and Merit Pay Plan and City Administrator's Goals.
Say that 3 times fast. I'm going to direct you to page 51 in your packet. There is a memo from the Personnel Committee that outlines our discussion from our August 4th workshop. So there were 2 pieces to this. One was taking a look at the policy and procedure that we had written up and approved for the performance review of our city administrator in the appointment of a merit pay plan. And then the second one is related to the annual goals that the council would be creating for the city administrator. So the 2 sections are highlighted in yellow. And so let's just look at the first section first, which is the policy and procedure. I bullet pointed all of the points of discussion. I don't need to read that for you. You guys had this in your packet. And then as an attachment, starting on page 54, is the policy and procedure with those suggested changes in it. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have, or hopefully no other changes, but errors that you might find. And otherwise, we would be entertaining a motion to approve this revised policy and procedure.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to reiterate my concerns about this from the previous workshop meeting. My concerns are that I know this appears to have worked well at the University of Minnesota, perhaps in private industry. I have some concerns that this might be unnecessary and burdensome for a city the size of Anoka or Columbus. I think there were some concerns I expressed too about the goals, and that the goals might imply that goals are not necessarily always met. There's 32 teams in the NFL, all have the goal to win the Super Bowl, and 31 of those teams are not going to achieve that goal. I was given an example of goal number 1 here being necessary because a previous city administrator failed to execute a government function of getting people connected to the utility services. And I suggested that that's not a goal, that is an expectation that the city administrator leads the team to execute that government function. And that if the city leader fails to do that, I believe it is the job of this council to hold that leader accountable for failure to execute a government function. And that can be done internally and not with this process. I mean, this is a well-written, very lengthy process, and Councilmember Hegland, I can't thank you enough for putting the time and effort into this. But I think the end result is cost. And when we were trying to figure out the cost of this at the meeting, I think the best we could do is come up with an invoice for $10,000 and try and have our finance department figure out what part of that invoice was the true cost of this. We didn't know at that time. And as a result, I think this is, frankly, is an unnecessary cost of taxpayers' money for something that may be unnecessary and that we can handle internally without consultants.
So I'm curious how you propose to do this. I mean, what we did, and I think we talked about this last time, is we created a policy and procedure in where none existed prior. So I'm trying to understand what your objection is to. Is your objection to doing an annual review of the city administrator? Like, are you not in favor of doing that?
No, I think I clearly stated that I think it's unnecessary, and this particular process is unnecessary and burdensome, that we could make it much simpler and do it internally without paying a consultant to come in and do the work.
I just want to make sure you're understanding. So we did talk about this last time too. First, I did go back to Ellen and asked her to look at her invoice and tell me how much of the 10,000 or whatever it was for this project. She said about 6,500. So that's your cost, because the rest of it was us unpaid staff or volunteers. So you have to have a policy or a procedure to do something like this, because that's what makes sure that you're doing it consistently from year to year to year. And we talked about that. We had Megan weigh in on that at our last discussion of this. So I'm not saying it has to be this. I'm asking you to tell me, like, what part of this don't you like? What feels that it's so burdensome? Because the burdensome part of it was creating it. That isn't going to have to be done next year. Now it's written. We just follow this process. And the things that the council discussed at the workshop, which is don't do the 360 review, just survey the council and the staff. That also eliminates, I think, some of what you felt was unnecessary. And I agree with you. I mean, the reason we did the 360 is because we were in a state of transition, and we wanted to get everybody's input, because this was Jack's first year. Having gotten glowing reviews from everybody we talked to, I think we all agreed it was probably unnecessary to do this again next year, and maybe in year 3, but every year we can decide what stakeholders we want feedback from. And so you're not tied to doing it exactly like we did it this year. And the whole purpose of us having this conversation is because the process that we developed said that after we do the annual evaluation, we'll give the council a chance to say, what'd you think of it, and what do you want to do differently? So I'm not opposed to doing it differently, but I'm not hearing any suggestions for what you want different.
Okay, so to answer your question, I think we discussed trimming up this 6.5-page policy and procedure, making it a little more efficient and easier to administrate, and having that discussion.
So give me some examples, because what we also said was combining the merit pay procedure, which has to be a separate process, has to be discussed in an open meeting versus a closed meeting for the performance review. So we had those as 2 separate processes, and what I heard was that we would like to have those all in one, because you think of them in one sort of as one process, but they have to be done differently, because state statute mandates that you have to have the discussion about the pay in an open meeting, whereas you can have the discussion on the performance in a closed meeting. So I'm happy to change this however you want me to, but all I'm hearing is that you don't like it, but you're not telling me how you would change it to make it less, in your words, burdensome.
Well, I don't think that's the purpose of this meeting right now, is to go and make changes. I think we're voting on whether we're going to approve it or not. And then the time to make the changes would be, if it's not approved, to go back and make those changes. Am I not correct?
That's one way to look at it. I just think it's easier for the rest of the council to understand whether or not what you're concerned about is a concern. But if you're not able to communicate that, then it just comes across as you just don't like it.
I think it comes across that I don't like spending $6,500 on it.
And you won't next year. So that's done. I mean, just like starting, our cannabis ordinance, we had nothing on the books for cannabis, right? It costs a lot of money to do that cannabis ordinance because you're doing it from scratch. updates to a current ordinance don't cost as much money. So this isn't going to cost you $6,500 next year. In fact, there shouldn't be anything that Ellen would end up doing other than doing the staff interviews, getting the staff feedback, the things that we can't as council members participate in. So it's not going to be 6,500. I don't know what it'll be. If it'll be 1,000. I don't know. I don't know how long it takes. She meets individually with people, or how long it takes her to put together the written report that then you get when you meet to do the performance evaluation.
Yeah, well,
You can certainly put a limit on that if if the concern is the money. You can certainly say, I don't want to spend more than, pick a number on this process next year.
So I think you just mentioned something that's my concern. We don't know how much it's going to be next year, and I believe that this process is not worth $1. If we spend $1 on it, it's unnecessary. That we can develop a process that we handle in-house without paying a consultant.
Let me interrupt here. The way, I don't know where you're coming from on this either, Scott. We paid a consultant to help us write it and get to this point. Now we don't have to pay a consultant before next year, 2 years down the road. So I was getting the opinion that you just didn't like the evaluations part of it and setting goals and stuff like that. You don't think that we should do that part of this process?
Again, you just said that we're going to have to pay a consultant some money to do this process next year, that it won't be 6,000, but we're still paying a consultant to do this process.
And if I'm right, we don't have to pay the consultant anything next year, do we?
Well, we don't have to pay her to help put together a policy and procedure because we have that. But part of what we have in here is that you're going to get feedback from the council and you're going to get feedback from staff. Because of open meeting law, you can't all tell me what you think about Jack's, performance. That has to go to somebody else. So it's either going to go to a city attorney or it's going to go to our paid consultant. And I can tell you the city attorneys make more money than our HR consultant does. Those are your two choices, unless there's some other choice I'm not thinking about. Unless you want to say, forget it, we're not going to do any sort of survey and collection of that information up front. And the same is true with the staff. Although, we're not breaking open meeting law, there's a power structure. You don't want the council, who officially has hiring and firing authority over staff, asking staff what they think of their boss. I mean, it really should go to a third party that's neutral in the whole process. So again, in most cities, at least that I did research on, it's your city administrator or it's your HR person. So those are your two choices, and you're going to pay either one of them.
This is Jenny. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Relating to what Scott noted, clarifying with Ellen, will she be doing interviews with each staff member annually as a part of this review, or will it just be the collection of the written surveys that she'll be doing? Because I know this year she went very in depth with each staff member.
I think what she did was she let them decide whether or not they wanted to just hand in or if they wanted to talk to her about it, and most wanted to talk to her about it. So I think, again, as council, if you're concerned about costs, you can certainly say, it's going to be a written survey. Staff does a written survey. They send it to the HR person, and there's no conversation. She just tallies it up. I don't think you're going to get as good of information that way, but you certainly have the power to do that if you want to keep costs down.
This is Jenny. I think it just becomes a bit subjective in terms of it can get a little carried away. Not to say you got carried away, but in general, all of a sudden it can open a can of worms into larger discussions, which can be healthy, but also can all of a sudden be very costly. And so I understand what you're saying in terms of, so with Ellen, with this $6,500, you noted that $6,500 was specific to the collection of data.
No, it was the whole thing. So,
okay.
I mean, again, we had nothing. There had never been a review of a city administrator in this city, as far as I could tell, ever. So there was no policy and procedure that said, here's how you do it, or here's how you decide how you're going to compensate that city administrator. And so we had the employment agreement that Jack was hired under, which said, if you do an annual review, it requires it, right? And it says that if you do an annual review, he can be eligible for a merit increase. And if he's not going to get a merit increase, he's still eligible for the cost of living increase that everybody gets, but the council decides that. So there were some things that were part of his employment contract that mandate that we do this performance review. I think it's really a big mistake for a city, and I don't care how big they are, to do things like that and not have a written policy and procedure. So, and I think the attorneys would agree with that.
I would certainly agree with that statement. And it's up to the council to how expansive that is and what's in it.
Yes, and so to answer two questions here, number one, an annual review does not have to be this particular format. And my objection to it is this format is very detailed and it is costly. Any way you look at it. The second thing is if our leader is not executing a government function, that's our responsibility, isn't it, to address that and not make it a goal for an annual review? If they're not connecting water services, isn't that an expectation that they're doing a function that they're expected to do? It's not a performance issue. They're not doing their job.
Well, I think the reality is that every city administrator has way more on their plate than they can possibly get done. And so it's up to the council to help them prioritize what those tasks are. That's what these goals do. And so what we were trying to accomplish in setting these goals was to say, let's pick some goals for Jack that he can make a priority and set some, very explicit curbs and gutters around there, so he knows what we're really expecting him to deliver, in what time frame we're expecting him to deliver that, so that he knows that this is the council's priorities in terms of getting stuff done. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have anything else to do the rest of the year. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have other important things to do the rest of the year. But when it comes to, what we tried to do, and I think, we got feedback from everybody on this, not just the council, but we got feedback from, the staff and from the business owners and the residents and stuff. People had different ideas. That was that kind of color-coded sheet that you saw. And then we just clustered them into topics so that you didn't have 25 different, things to look at. So, and then what I did is I put those like topics in front of you and we agreed, maybe 4-1, I don't remember, but the majority agreed that those are the goals that we wanted to go with. I just made them into SMART goals so that it was really clear what how specific it was, what the deliverable was, what the time frame was, etc. I don't know what else to say.
No, I appreciate your feedback and your explanation, but it doesn't change my mind. I still think the process is more than what we need to do. The annual review, I think this is more than what we need to do. So,
can I ask you a question then? Do you think we should do an annual review?
Well, I think we have to do an annual review. I'm not saying we don't do an annual review, but I'm saying this particular process of doing an annual review is more than it needs to be to accomplish the annual review.
Okay.
And I'm even willing to meet halfway and say, can we trim this up? Can we simplify this process that you've already worked on so it's not necessarily going to a consultant, and so that it's not as lengthy and time consuming?
So
are we getting a bang for our buck out of this process?
This is Jenny. Can I clarify? Either way, any feedback we would offer could not be collected by any one of us. It would have to go to either a consultant or to our city attorney, I believe. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So either way, there would be some cost associated with it. Unless your objective would be to have discussion in closed meeting only and take away any kind of survey or anything like that. So I guess that would be the question. Do you have an idea of what you would want that to look like?
No, I don't at this point.
And, you know, I know that it's several pages long, but the several pages is really just to make it very clear for whoever is, you know, spearheading this, whether it's the council, the personnel committee, and a city attorney, whatever, just basically, you know, set the date, do this next, do this next, do this next. I'm, as I go through here, I mean, if we agree that getting feedback in a sort of a confidential format, which is what the surveys were meant to accomplish, and then collating that in a way that the council could have that information in advance of them discussing their performance, would be something that everybody would like. There really isn't anything else about this process. There isn't really anything else to this process. It just describes how we're going to gather that information, who's going to gather it, how it's going to be presented to the council, when the council can talk about the performance, when they can talk about the merit increase. So it's a lot of words when you go through it, but when you read it, there's not that much to it.
This is Jenny. To reduce cost, I would agree that in year 2, which would be 2026, I would agree that we could potentially do a paper survey only and not personal interviews, which would reduce the amount of hours that would go to an HR consultant. But that would be just a means to reduce some of the hours in a cost-cutting manner.
I mean, the other way to do it is just set a dollar amount for how much you want to spend on it. I mean, I think if you talk to the staff, how they feel about that, they would not agree with you. They would say that they would want to have the ability to in some cases, they preferred the ability to verbally transfer their impressions rather than write it down. They felt safer doing that, or maybe it was just easier, I don't know. So I mean, that's certainly something we can do, but it might not be interpreted positively by staff. And you certainly can accomplish, I mean, like I said, you can put a value on how much you want to spend on this. I don't know how many hours it took her to do the feedback with the staff. I don't know, maybe you guys know, she was up here when she did it. A day? So it's maybe 6 hours, 7 hours?
So clarifying and confirming that $6,500 was the total. What would be included as a part of this specific performance review policy was a small fraction of that $6,500.
The vast majority of that was spending time coming up with the questions, looking at what other cities did, getting the attorney's approval of the process that we were putting together, looking at what the League of Minnesota Cities did. I mean, I did a lot of that. She did a lot of that. We talked about it not when Jack was present, but with Aaron or with Jack or with Ron as part of the personnel committee. So it was a combination of the research that it took to put this together, and then the discussion amongst either the attorneys and the rest of the personnel committee, the crafting of the tools that we use to survey, and then she reached out to the residents and the business owners and talked to most of them in person. And then again, compiling all that information in the report. She was at our meeting to be there. I mean, she doesn't have to be there if you don't want her there. I mean, there's lots of places that you can look at it and say, you know, it'd be nice to have her there, but we don't want to pay for it. And so then you take that out. You know, for every hour that you cut off, it's whatever, $165 less off the bill. So, you know, you come up with a dollar value that says, you know, you don't have to do that tonight, but before you start this process next year, you can say, like, we don't want to spend more than $2,000, and that's what the budget is.
You're shaking your head down.
No, this is Jenny. No, I agree. So ultimately, I do somewhat agree with having a dollar value associated with that, just because it can get carried away, or all of a sudden somebody could be joining several meetings and it just gets very costly. So to your credit, I do agree with that. And we don't have to decide that tonight. We can vote on the policy and then in the future is what I'm understanding, add a dollar value if we feel comfortable with that. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. We can do it. It's not costing us anything to approve this thing.
Yeah.
It's just doing the function itself.
And it's not, I mean, you're doing the review of the policy and procedures so that we don't have to do this next year. It's done. They just pull this off the shelf and we can start, oh yeah, that's
You don't
right.
want
We have
to, you don't want
do
to
this.
start over next year and do this all again.
Yeah.
No.
No, there's been a lot of time put in on this thing. And it's easy to take it apart, or whatever, but we have to have something like you were saying a minute ago. We, three of us can't get together and say, well, what do you think of this? You have to have that. You have to have Bill or somebody out there that's not connected do the evaluation.
Yes. And again, I know in the last meeting, I thanked you and thank you again for all the work you do on this. I appreciate it. And I felt that this year's review process did go very well.
So if there aren't any specific changes to this, then I would just move that we approve the revised city administrator performance review policy and procedure and merit pay plan, which have been now combined. And then I will talk about goals. That's my motion and I'm sticking to it.
You're going to make two motions?
No, I'm going to make two motions. That's my first one. Because they're two different things. So I need a second.
This is Jenny, I second.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other discussion on this or questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Jenny, I.
Scott, nay.
Janet, I.
Rob, nay.
Ron, aye.
All right. Wait. I want to help me understand the nay, Rob, please.
I think I talked about it and Scott both of us went back and forth in that, in the workshop, right? In that these goals being used against Jack for what his pay increase could be. I do agree with Scott on that.
We're not talking about the goals though. Right now, we were just talking about the written procedure.
Well, we're leading up to the goals and this is part of that. So if I was to approve this and approve the goals, it's kind of counterproductive, right?
The goals will be a separate motion. So you can say no to the goals if you don't like them, but this is just about the procedure.
My vote's my vote.
Okay, I just wanted to understand it.
Yep.
All right, so it
The motion
passes.
passes 3-2. And Scott and Rob voted nay on it.
All right, so then the second part of this is the goals. And I already talked about how we came up with them, that they were, broad input from a number of people. They were condensed down and then made into SMART goals. And they start on page 52 of our packet and go on to 53. There are 6 of them. In our workshop, Jack had an opportunity to weigh in whether he felt that these were doable and I guess reasonable goals. And if I'm quoting you correctly, I believe you said you did. So that was one concern that was brought up. These do align with the council's priorities, at least as we've talked about them. And it's not meant to say this is all that Jack has to do. And it's also built into this is a quarterly update by Jack. So we certainly have the ability to, modify the goals as things come up or don't come up, or if other higher priority things come up. So, to your point, Scott, about, the city water and sewer and that should have been done. I mean, that's a really great example of had we had a process where that was a goal and there was a report back to the council in a timely manner, it wouldn't have slipped through the cracks. And, some of the delay was purposeful delay because when things came due, we were in the midst of a recession. And I think there was a conscious decision made by the council at that time to put the end date out there, to extend the end date out there. And then it just didn't get the attention that it needed to. So the whole purpose of having these goals defined like this and then having the quarterly report is to do exactly what you said, which is stay on top of it and make sure they get done. And if if there's reasonable reasons why it can't get done, help Jack overcome those obstacles.
Any discussion?
This is Jenny. I do have a request of change in terms of the discussion around not SMART goals, but the goals in general, that we, going to the bottom of 51, it notes state the city administrator's goals as SMART goals. I would like to change or modify that to state the city administrator's overseeing of city goals as SMART goals, because I don't want them to be personally linked to the city administrator. They are overseeing our city's goals. So I'd like that language change in general.
I'm struck. So you're on page 51?
Bottom of 51, last bullet.
So all those bullet points we're summarizing the discussion from our August 6th, which is what I think we said.
So just making sure that we clarify that they're overseeing the city's goals, because I feel that it's a bit convoluted in terms of, are they his goals, or not just Jack's, but in general, a city administrator's goals, or are they the city's goals? And I want to just ensure that we're clarifying that.
Okay, so there's some confusion about that. So these are both. This is Jack's goals as a city administrator to get this done. Does he have to do every single step of this? No. I mean, he won't be able to do. He's going to have to lean on engineers, other staff, the city attorney, but it's his job to get it done and to keep us appraised at where he is in the process of however we've defined this. If Jack had personal goals, like if he had a goal that said, hey, I want to learn how to do Zoom better, that would be a personal goal, not a city goal, right? We decided not to go there on personal goals. We decided that we wanted to stick to goals that were in line with the city's priorities, which is how we came up with these. So when we say that there's Jack's goals, what we mean is he's the one that's being held accountable for them. And he's the one that will report back to us on the progress.
And this is Jenny. I think the city administrator is held to a higher standard. They're at a high level. And so while I do appreciate a city administrator having personal goals, I feel it's important. And as I sat in and worked with our city administrator, I understand how we feel about goals, and we didn't go there, but a future city council may not understand how we're doing this. And I feel that it's important that the city administrator oversee our city's goals. So while they may have personal goals, I feel that this specifically and what their merit pay is based on should be city goals.
So, but what you're asking to amend is my personnel committee report. Is that right?
I just want to ensure that any clarification and any wording within any documents that we are actually going to approve, ensure that any of that would be related to city goals.
So just pick out some part where you feel like that isn't clear so I can understand this better.
So like I said, I can go through, it's based, what I'm looking at specifically and what I noted was specifically based on your report on pages 51 and 52. So I just want to clarify any language going back to, I know that the document's fairly long. So I can go back and review this to find any other specific places, but because it was noted in the personnel committee report, I took that as to be a part of this as well. So again, it discussed the city administrator's goals as a part of this entire process. So I just want to ensure that we're clarifying what that looks like.
Well, I'm thinking that what you're suggesting should be an amendment to the policy and procedure. But I'm not finding the specific area that where it alludes that it might be personal goals.
So I would need for you to make your next amendment to understand, because you haven't made the second amendment, which is relating to goals. Is that what we're understanding?
The second.
Or I'm sorry, not the second motion.
Yeah, I haven't made it yet, but what I would make is approving what's written on page 52 and 53, which is what we already approved at or agreed to, I should say, at the workshop just turned from those general topics to SMART goals. So I mean, I certainly can add to the report. The report isn't anything that we have to approve, though. I mean, it's just me regurgitating back what we talked about at the workshop and what I did with those recommendations.
So this is Jenny. The reason I held off on noting it was because you noted that you're splitting this into two portions and the second would be relating to goals. So I just wanted to ensure that your second motion, again, I don't know what that's going to look like because you're splitting it into two pieces. So potentially it may be included in that.
So Jenny, on 52 there, the Personnel Committee, City Administrator, 2025, May 31, 2026, goals recommendation. I look at that as being the city.
Correct. And I just want to clarify that because right now, yes, we may agree, but in our meetings that we held outside of this with our city administrator, we also discussed personal goals. And so I want to clarify that really what we're focusing on are city goals.
Is it not clear by looking at the goals that are written down that those are city goals? I mean, for me it is, but I mean, the goals as they are written, 1 through 6 here, I think that would be, if you read them, I don't know how you could ever think of them as being personal goals.
This is Jenny, but earlier you noted that we didn't go there in terms of personal goals, but that potentially would have been something a city administrator could do.
Jack can always have personal goals.
Right. I just want to ensure that that's not included in this structure and scaffolding.
Mr. Mayor and Council.
Can you help me? Maybe you can.
Can I take a stab
Yes,
at this?
please do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it'd be as simple, perhaps as simple as an additional bullet right above state the city administrator goals as SMART goals. You know, something like, to be clear, the city administrator's goals are intended to implement the city's goals, something to that effect. So it's clear that the goal of the city administrator established annually are intended to implement the city's overall goals or something to that effect.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to find is I thought that was actually in the procedure that they align with the city's goals. And I'm trying to find it and I'm failing miserably at that because I think that then that protects what you're worried about.
And this is Jenny, I'm not worried about it with our specific council. I'm saying if we're creating this document for the future, I just want that clarification. Thank you, Bill.
I'm just going to write it out and see if we can solve that point. Purpose of establishing annual goals for the city administrator is to ensure.
I mean, alignment with the city's priorities or the city's goals.
Ensure the timely implementation of city goals. Something like that. Timely and effective, whatever, something of that nature.
Thank you.
And I just put it above the last point, state the city administrator's goals as SMART goals.
Okay, so I'm thinking to accomplish what Jenny's looking for is I just incorporate that into the motion because what she's looking at is just a memo, which is not going to be part of my motion and is not being approved. It's just my memo helping the council guide through this process in the documents.
But your memo is a committee report, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so that's a subset of the council. The committee report is a recommendation to the council.
Yep.
And so the council is modifying your recommendation as its official action.
So is that a third motion?
I don't think so. You're adopting your motion that you split these motions and you are recommending goals as presented in the packet. And the council is suggesting a slight modification of that recommendation.
All right, so help me with the wording of the motion then. That's what I'm struggling with.
Sure. The motion would be to approve the goals and recommendations as presented in the packet as further amended by the council, and so that the council would have to agree to this. And it's just to add a bullet on page 51. The purpose of establishing annual goals for the city administrator is to ensure the timely and effective implementation of city goals. So it's just kind of clarifying what the purpose is.
Okay, so I will make that motion.
This is Jenny. I second that motion.
It's okay.
Got it?
We got a first and a second. A motion and a second.
You need, take a vote.
Take a vote, unless there's more
I
discussion.
missed that one.
I wondered about
I'm
that.
sitting there thinking, I thought you were going to make all this adjustment.
You know, he just said it
Mayor, I
for
saw
me.
you writing it down, so I thought maybe you're
I thought
pausing to
so
write it
too. I
down.
wasn't
Okay,
going to
so we have
interrupt
a motion that's been seconded, and any discussion, any questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, I.
Scott, aye.
you. Janet, I.
Rob, nay.
Ron, aye.
All right, we're done.
The motion passes 4-1. I'd just like to add something here, that all these goals that we're talking about, Jack's talked about for the last 2 years or whatever. So it always comes up. We talked about, nobody wanted to talk about the water tower or any of that issue. But, and to deal with this, the water hookup, Elizabeth put a hold on it, the council's put holds on it, so whatever. We'll go on to then item number 6, EDA council member appointment. Jack, you want to read that, or?
I'll be glad to. At the July 9th, 2025 City Council meeting, resolution number 25-09, enabling resolution establishing an economic development authority under Minnesota statute, section 469-909 to 469-1081 was approved. That resolution allows the change from the current 7-member authority, which consisted of the entire city council and 2 citizen member, to a 5-member authority composed of 2 city council and 3 citizen members. For existing bylaws, the mayor is a designated member of the authority. As a result of the restructuring of the authority board, 1 more council member will need to be recommended for appointment by the mayor, subject to approval of the city council. That appointment will be offered tonight at this meeting. The appointment is annual and the term will expire on December 31st, 2025. In addition, and with the change of the composition of the EDA, there's an open citizen member vacancy that will remain to be filled. The 2 existing citizen members will remain on the authority board. Their terms expire in 2029 and 2030 respectively. Staff will seek direction from the EDA for solicitations of application for the open city member seat at the August 21st, 2025 EDA meeting. Staff requests that Mayor Hanegraaff recommend an appointment of the member of the city council to the EDA for city council approval. The term for this seat is an annual appointment and will expire on December 31st, 2025.
Can I ask one question? Is that in the bylaws that the appointment's only for 1 year?
It is for a council member. It just, and we do these annual. You can put it in there differently, but most places do this as an annual appointment.
Okay, all right. Well, just to let the report know that I did pick a council member, and it's Jenny Latin. And one reason I picked for her was she's going to be here for another 3.5 years. And I think that the EDA needs someone stable going through the process, even though I'll be here for next year. You never know when elections come up, but if she's going to be here 3 and more years, I hope that she stays on the board and we get some consistency going. So Mayor Hanegraaff moved to approve the appointment of Jenny Latin to the City of Columbus Economic Development Authority for the term to expire December 30th, 2025.
So this is Janet, I second.
We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any discussion? Any Questions? Having none, we'll go to a vote. Jenny?
Does Jenny vote on this?
Yeah, Jenny votes.
You can vote.
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Ron, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
I'm glad you
Could've voted
voted
no.
yes. So if I'm right, Jack, or Bill, so when we set out duties next year, as we always do, who's going to be on what board, is this have to be voted in again?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a group deal we vote in? If someone says,
Well, you will be automatically on the board per the bylaws unless those bylaws are amended to change that. If they are and the mayor is not on there, then there'll be 2 appointments to be made.
could the mayor appoint them?
The way generally that's done, appointments to commissions and liaisons and committees, assignments are made by the mayor and approved by the city council.
Okay, thank you. As we noted earlier, we had changed the agenda tonight, so we're going to go to the consent agenda, and that's item B. And I gathered there's some changes or...
So I can do this. So this is Janet. So I move to approve the consent agenda, removing items 3 and 4 for further discussion. So it'd be including approving items 1 and 2.
Are we going to talk about 3 and 4 afterwards?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion that Janet made is to approve items 1 and 2.
Second, Rob.
And Rob seconded. We got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any discussion? Having none, we'll take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
Ron, aye. Now we'll go on to item number 3.
No, so we know we should talk about the 2 things that I removed, if that's okay.
Yes, I understood that was why you're
Yes.
removing them.
Yep.
So they are removed, but they're not off the agenda.
Right. So, and it's because there's edits to them. So can't do that as part of the consent agenda. You have to pull them off and discuss them. And it's more than just, I think, more than just my edits. So, and what we had decided on our minutes, the process was that they go out, we give edits back to Aaron, and then he gives us revision marks on our edits. And if there's more edits to be made, we do it as part of this process so that everybody hears it at the same time. So at the end of this meeting, we have minutes that we can post.
Okay.
So the first set of minutes on April 23rd. So we've talked about these before, and this is more of a question for Aaron than it is a request or a change. And that is, I think we talked about how we wanted the minutes to follow the agenda. And the specific example that I gave when we talked about this was that I gave a planning commission report and I gave a personnel committee report, but that report is under the consultant liaison and staff reports. I went back and looked at the agenda to make sure that I wasn't misremembering that those were actual items on the agenda, and they were. So I'm fine with how this is written. Well, I'm not fine. I think it's too short, but I'm not gonna lay on my sword over that. I'm fine with the text. I just would like to have this follow the format of the agenda for that day. So you can make those changes. I don't think you have to bring it back to us. Just pull out these 2 things and put them under the headings that were consistent with the agenda.
I would agree with that if it's not substantive. It's just moving
It is.
and providing headings.
That's all it is. So that's,
Do you have something?
For April 23rd.
Yeah.
This is Jenny. The only question I had was line 89. The total estimated cost for the City Hall generator bid is noting at $28,239. And I don't believe that was correct. Was it?
I didn't hear what you said.
The total generator cost is noted here on line 89, still at $28,239. And we only approved
That is not right.
one of the,
I'm going to take a stab and say
it was 14,000.
but I'll look it
Yes.
up.
So I just want line 89 corrected.
I think this is the cost of the 2 combined. This was the cost of the recommended package, isn't it? Yeah. So
2.
It's like $14,641 or some number like that, but I'll look it up
I
here.
just want to clarify that that is just isn't noted here. So they don't have both noted. So I either note both or clarify that.
Well, I think that, that was part of what we discussed with these is that they were pretty sparse. They didn't give a lot of background in terms of the motion. So there's nothing in this section that talks about the fact that the staff recommended bid was 2 and it cost $28,239. And after discussion, it was whittled down to 1 for a cost of 14. That's not in there
I
anymore.
believe this was the second meeting when this was actually discussed. This was the approval. All of that discussion happened at the previous meeting, which should be in another set of minutes or a subsequent set of minutes. One of them was.
Oh, you're right, because this is where we delayed the decision. I'm sorry, you're right. So then I think this is right, because this was the cost of the estimate that was being recommended.
Then we came back the following meeting with that 14,000 or
Yep.
the.
Much
Yep.
more lengthy discussion. in the
Yep, you're right.
next.
Thank you for reminding us. So I think the only change, well, there might be other changes.
Scott, you have changes?
Not to that one.
Pardon?
Not to that one.
Not to this, so the April one's complete?
So, yes, so then I would move to approve the April 23rd minutes as written with the change that under D, consultant liaisons and staff reports, Councilmember Hegland's report, that bullet point comes out and gets put under the respective agenda items of Planning Commission report and Personnel Committee report, which was on the agenda.
Scott, I second.
Got a motion on the floor, seconded. Any discussion, questions? None. Jenny?
Jenny, I.
Scott, I.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
Ron, aye. Passes unanimously. On, next one, May 28th, 2025.
You want to go first, Scott?
Nope.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I have a few, not a few, I have several changes. So on page 1, I'm looking at line 33 that starts the motion. I think part of the motion was also approving the supplemental bill list as distributed, but that's not in the motion. So the language was in our, where we always get our recommended languages. So I think that it should also include that the supplemental bill list was approved. On page 2, line 48. So just in general, this discussion or this presentation by those 2 residents, it's flipping between tenses or it's flipping between first person and second person. So I'm just saying, let's just pick one and stick to it. So you've got him talking about, it's being presented as the way I would amend this is on line 48, instead of saying while visiting we saw, which is first person, it's they saw, because the rest of this refers to it in that tense. So you change we to they. In line 49, you would change us to them. You would change we to they again in line 49. And in line 50, you would change our to their. And on line 61, you would change our to their. And on line 62, you would change we to they, so that it's all in the same person. On line 79, it says the city emphasized that rent is meant, I think it just is missing council, city council, because several of us brought that up in that discussion. On page 3 of 14, on line 101, it and should be in attachment 1, not and attachment 1. And line 102, turn should be term. So those are just, I don't know, maybe it didn't sound in the video right. On line 110, Susan Bosch's last name is spelled incorrectly. Her last name is spelled Bautch. On page 4, I have no changes. On page 5, the sentence in line 187 it didn't quite make sense. It looked like there was a word missing. So I would suggest it says, in addition to 3 to 5 other trucks arriving randomly to pick up equipment. So you would insert arriving before randomly. On page 6, on line 214, there's a missing the in front of option than the previous tenant. On page 7, on line 261, there's a parentheses. There's not another parentheses before it, so I think you just take that parentheses out because there's not an earlier parentheses putting anything in there. On page 8, there are no changes. On page 9, there are no changes. On page 10, there are no changes. On page 11, line 409, I think it should be an AN in front of AI bot, was using an AI bot to record the transcript. On page 12 of 14, there are several here. On line 440, there's a capital T for thank. It should be a small lowercase t. On line 447, 10/22/32 is formatted like a date. It should be 10-22-32. On line 448, Marshawn is spelled wrong. It's Marshan, Lake. On line 454, we should add Nick's last name, Nick Tomsick. So it's Tom, C like cat, Z like zebra, I-K. On 455, a period should be after also attended, cross out as well as, and then it starts with City Attorney Griffith attended via Zoom. On line 462, we never acted formally or were given any direction. So were and given. On line 463, I'm suggesting you put a period after direction, cross out and then add he originally thought they could just come up with a policy. I watched the video, by the way, so that's where this is coming from, because I didn't think, the question I was asking is, do you need direction in order to send people to collection if they don't pay their kennel and impound fees? And we actually did come up with an answer to that, but it's not in here. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. So line 463 should read, he originally thought that they could come up with a policy to state that this is the procedure we're going to use for an unpaid bill for a reclaimed animal if the animal doesn't pay the charge, but stated that the direction is clear enough and it will be recorded in the minutes and a policy isn't necessary. The city will forward unpaid kennels and pickup charges to collections. That's what you said in the video. So that's what I want in here, so that it's really clear that council gave direction in that regard. And then my question to Bill is that true? We don't need a policy, or do we need a policy that actually says that?
I don't have the minutes in front of me, so if somebody can hand those to me.
So I'm on page 12, and the question is, we have animal control that picks up dogs, brings it, stray dogs, they bring it to an impound facility. If the people want it back, they have to pay, they should be paying the impound fee. The impound facility isn't set up to do that. So it ends up getting charged back to the city, and then we have to recoup it. Mm-hmm. We hadn't been recouping it. We talked about that. It wasn't made clear to staff that we wanted staff to take it to the next level if they weren't able to get the resident to pay for it under normal circumstances. And Cheryl had asked if we wanted that done, that we give direction to staff in that way. Mm-hmm. That's what I was doing in this, and that's what was shown on the video, but it didn't get in the minutes that way.
Okay.
So my question is, my edits, I think, gets it in the minutes the way it should be. But what Jack was saying originally was that he was going to come up with a policy to state that this is the procedure. At the meeting, he says that we we don't need the policy because your direction is clear enough. And my question is, if we're going to send residents to collection, do we need a policy?
You need an ordinance.
Okay, so,
That's a legal legislative matter, and that a policy would not be good enough
okay.
to carry
So,
the weight of,
so we need to do that because
Yes.
direction isn't good enough then.
yeah, but it wouldn't be in the minutes because it wasn't discussed.
Right.
Yeah.
But as long as we're talking about it,
Sure,
I wanted
sure, sure.
clarity.
I would like to see it in an ordinance.
So help me know where this is supposed to go.
Okay, so you don't have to worry about the ordinance piece. I was just asking that
The
question.
sentence you want added, tell me where that needs to go.
I think I just did. So I'm looking at on line 463. There's a period after direction.
Yep.
Cross out the and.
Yep.
He originally is inserted.
Yep.
The rest of the sentence stands as it was.
Okay.
Now we're on lines 464. Leave that sentence the way that it is, but instead of the period, cross out the period and add, but stated, meaning he stated, the direction is clear enough. It will be recorded in the minutes and a policy isn't necessary. The city will forward unpaid kennels and pickup charges to collections. That's what was said in the minute. That's what was said on the video.
I'll find it in the video
Okay.
from tonight's meeting.
Yep.
I can't write that fast.
All right, I can give this to you.
I'll find it in the video.
All right.
We got it.
And then on page 13, on line 511, whoops, I take that back. On line 477, park board should be capitalized. On line 511, a period, after the period on the 90,000, it looks like there's just a half a sentence there. So I'm thinking it should say the council discussed options for calcium chloride because it's just a half a sentence. On page 14, line 521, it's DDA, not DA. And also in line 523, it's DDA, not just DA. And that's the end of my edits.
This is Scott. Just a question for you.
So, yes.
On, when we're talking like line 47, 48, that whole conversation there, since you watched the video, were some of those quotes, it looks like some of these sentences were kind of giving an overview of what says, and then we're doing quotes.
Well,
So
and I think
we're quoting them.
my edits takes that out and just puts them all in the second person. So
But
I don't think he meant to have, I mean, he can speak to it. I don't think you meant to have these as quotes. I think you were just flipping back and forth between,
I didn't do this set.
okay, well
This was
then,
done by our recording.
yeah,
secretary.
so she was flipping back and forth between referring to it in the first person, referring to it in the second person.
right.
So I just made it all second person.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to worry about what the specifics were that they said. It does,
Where you put the quotes?
I didn't want to worry about where we put quotes.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else have any?
Can we spell council right on the top of the first page? Line 2.
In the title.
Yep. Thank you.
And this is Jenny. Can we also add the time as 6 PM
Where at?
in the title? If you go to April 23rd, we know April 23rd, 2025, 6 PM. We don't note a time on the 5:28 minutes.
It does state that you, okay, yep, no problem.
I'm sorry, I'm just title specific. I'm
Yep,
just trying
got
to
it.
keep them uniform.
Yep.
So I had a couple. So as it relates to line 45, they go in and out, but it goes from Rob to Robert. I don't know if we want to keep that consistent on 45. So previous lines above was Rob, and I believe it was the Osterbergs.
Mm-hmm.
And then on 45, it goes to Robert. So if change that to Rob. And then also 469, or starts at 468, but the resident states they had tried to address the issue on their own, but there was no positive outcome. Bush passed on the situation to the code compliance officer, Lassard. That should say that I passed on the code compliant officer's contact, and the resident reached out to them, not myself. I did not reach out to Sean in that regard. It was the resident, and there was resolution. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else on the minutes?
Somebody's just got to make a motion to approve all those.
I will. So
Talk about 525.
you have one too?
No,
Oh,
trying to get this thing going.
so I would move to approve the minutes of 5/28/25 with the corrections that were submitted by the council tonight.
Scott, a second.
We have a motion, been seconded. Any discussion, any questions? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
Jenny, I.
Scott, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
Ron, aye. Passes unanimously. We'll go on to item number D, consultant liaison and staff report. City engineer, Brian?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brian Bachmeyer, Consulting City Engineer.
Can you pull your mic up a little bit? Thank you.
I was just going to report that yesterday MnDOT did conduct a webinar on the 2025 Local Road Improvement Program process. So I attended that and got all the information. So I understand that the solicitation will be starting in September and be due by December. I'll make the decision in March, the announcements in March, and then the selected cities then will have the opportunity to enter into the agreements to proceed with their projects. So certainly we're getting ready for that, preparing the information that'll be needed for the administrator to work on the application. With that, I stand for any questions the council may have.
We don't have any. Thank you, Brian.
Welcome.
Next one is city attorney, Bill.
No report this evening?
Thank you. The mayor and city council report number 3. Jenny, do you have a report?
This is Jenny. Coon Creek had a watershed meeting on Monday, 8/11. The meeting went about 10 minutes, so nothing to report there. Tomorrow night, Thursday at 6:30, there's a Fall Fest volunteer meeting for anybody interested in volunteering. That'll be in our community senior center. And that is all I have to report.
Thank you. Scott, do you have anything?
No report tonight.
Janet?
No, I don't have a report, but I do have a question for Bill. So all of what we heard from Senator Kreun on the changes to the cannabis, does that mean that we have to update our ordinances? Our ordinance?
I don't know when you prepared them, quite possibly. Megan has been primarily providing that counsel, so I can ask her that question.
Okay, that'd be, I think,
Yep.
I mean, I know that we had some leftover changes, but we weren't going to address those until there was another reason. And it sounded like a lot of things changed on the state level, and I just don't know how that flows down to what we have in our ordinance.
Yeah, I think the changes largely were to the rules at the state, but yes, they could also impact the local ordinances. So I'll make a note to ask her.
Yeah, it sounded like they were pushing a lot of things down to the local people, so that's why I'm a little worried that maybe ours aren't adequate now.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob?
Just want to say thank you to the residents that had their National Night Out events. I only attended the one. I know others were able to make it to the rest, but and the Lions starting something at the park. It sounds like they're going to try and continue it and make it bigger next year. So that's all I have.
Okay. I'm going to go right on to number 4, the park board report. We kind of talked about the park board tonight already about the tennis courts, and I think that meeting we had on the 31st was mainly the tennis court issues. And I think I discussed the last meeting what we did before, ordered 4 more garbage cans, et cetera. So I think I brought that out. But I do want to talk tonight. We did have a fire board meeting on July 31st. And just some discussions on it. These are 4 things that it may not make a lot of sense to people, but ladder number 1 replacement, they're going to move that back to 2038, right, Jack? And it's more or less for a budget restrictions that Forest Lake has. And then they explained, Al explained that the 2026 Rescue 1 replacement will be getting looked at with the possibility of being a 1-ton F550 versus a custom fire truck to cut the cost down. So it's not as big of a unit. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing they discuss is a full-time deputy chief position. and that cost is $160,000 a year, a guesstimate, and we'd end up paying 20% of it. Then they brought up, discussed Al spending $30,000 to modify the seats on engine 1 and engine 2 because of the room in the back seats. These two units were purchased, and the seats in the back weren't properly put in where the firemen get in the back seat and they can't put their equipment on because they don't have no leg room. So it's kind of a deal. This money's going to come out of the public safety money, so it won't be on the budget on that part there. Also, during this meeting, when Al was talking, I think we're getting a good dollar for a buck over there when he talked, and I wish I had some quotes from him. I don't know if you remember any of them, Jack, but there was some cities that pay thousands of dollars more than we pay for our services.
They do have a very efficient model of running that fire department. It's very cost effective and it delivers essentially the same amount of service compared to the other departments that have higher turnover rates in their volunteer firefighters. And I agree with Ron that we're getting a very good value, I believe, from participating with Forest Lake in this joint fire service endeavor.
Yep. So that's all I have. Yeah, it's. I think it's run very efficiently, and I think the members have to be there 25% of the calls. He said, if I'm right, Jack, that a volunteer fireman spends about 10 weeks a year at that fire hall somehow. Yeah. So we got some nice public service coming out at. The last thing on the item is the city administrator's report. And
before we do that, I would like to recommend that we allow the city attorney and the city engineer the option to excuse themselves on this. This could be 30 minutes or it could be an hour and a half. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it very much.
Was there a ball game on?
There's just an early morning meeting.
It might even still be light out there, or just getting dark.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you all.
Have a good
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Bill. Are you going to stay, Jim, or?
I do have a couple things, Mr. Mayor. Jim Winningstead, Public Works Director. In the meetings that I attend with Anoka County talking about the projects that are happening or going to happen in the city of Columbus, the County Road 23 and Kettle River Roundabout project, they are asking me to ask the city council what their thought process is on using Camp 3 Road from Potomac to 23 as their detour while we do that project. And I told them that I'd bring it forward. It makes a lot of sense to do it that way. It allows them to close that portion of 23 and get that construction done in a more timely manner than it would if they tried to keep it open. So that's their request. And I'm looking for some feedback.
I think it sounds logical to me. I mean, I see their point. But are they close off 155th, right?
As part of that project, 155th will be closed.
But is that part of the detour? Are they going to leave 155th open as a part of the detour?
No.
No, so that'll be closed too.
That'll be, so the way the project is being designed in the location of the roundabout, they're going to start pulling all of that out. So, some portions of 23 north and south of where the roundabout will be, Kettle River will be pulled out between 155th and Camp 3. Mm-hmm. And this just allows them to, construct that in a more timely manner by being able to close, County 23 basically, and Kettle River. And, some portions may be open for periods of time, but basically that's the stretch. And we all know how people operate. You kind of get the third program. A third of people avoid, a third of people follow the posted detour, and a third of people find the quickest route. And the quickest route is going to be Camp 3. So I'm saying that there's going to be a chunk of traffic that's going to go that way anyways. And we can kind of use that same thought process as the state has 97 closed and their posted detour is not Hornsby Street to 145th to Lyons to whatever Forest Lake is and around. But that's where the vast majority of traffic is going. So, I think they're going to go that way anyways. But the council saying, yes, we can use that as the detour allows the project to potentially be done in a quicker manner.
I do have one question. So people coming from the eastbound on 23, they can turn on cut over there at Camp 3 and then cut over?
So if you're coming from the freeway going westbound,
Yep.
you're going to take Camp 3, cross over Kettle River and go to Potomac and then go around down Potomac south.
So there's going to be a lot.
If you're going north, you're going to take Potomac up to Camp 3 and then go north on Kettle River or over to the freeway. So that's kind of the cut across. Otherwise, their detour is going to be Broadway. And then we're going to end up with a certain amount of traffic that's going to take Camp 3, a certain amount of traffic that'll take 165th. I'm sure there'll be some that are going to try to scoot across 162nd or every other road along the way. People are going to try to find a quicker way to go rather than drive all the way to Broadway.
I see a lot of trucks though cutting down, turning on Camp 3 that want to go, let's say to North Pine, and they're coming from the freeway.
Mhm.
They'll have to cut right across. There'll be a lot of traffic at that intersection, won't there?
I didn't hear, because I had some interruptions in my office, but I thought they said that there's somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 cars a day that go that way. That seemed like a really light number, so I think I got that wrong. I can ask that question, but I mean, they're going to, barring the fact that we close it, they're going to go that way anyways.
I was thinking what you were asking was that they would close Camp 3 between Kettle River and 23.
That will be closed.
So that's not part of the detour.
I understand. So they're going to build a roundabout.
Yeah, no, I know what the project is. I'm just saying, are they going to leave that section of Camp 3 between Lake Drive and Kettle River open as part of the detour?
Yes.
Okay, because I worry about, there is going to be a lot of traffic that's going to go across there, and that's a bad intersection. That's the whole reason we're doing it.
Sorry. So some of the things that they're looking at doing is potentially changing the dynamics of the intersection, meaning maybe because Kettle River is going to be closed south of Camp 3, that maybe Kettle River, people going south on Kettle River, that's the stop sign. And then Camp 3 is the through. So they're looking at some things, which, we're ultimately a year and a half away, right? Mm-hmm. But knowing that they can use that as a detour aids in the planning in how things are constructed. So if that's not a detour, then maybe they have to keep a lane open on Lake Drive. So then they're building a half a roundabout and then directing traffic to the other side of the roundabout and then constructing the other side. Things become more complicated. So it's a quicker manner and a route that more than likely a chunk of the traffic is going to take anyways.
Yeah, so the question is, are we going to use Camp 3 as the detour route, or are we going to use Broadway?
That's the question.
That's the question. And if we use Broadway, most people are going to use Camp 3 anyway. They're not going to follow the detour route.
Like I said, if you use the third method,
yeah.
It may be more, it may be less, but that's kind of the talk that everybody throws out. Third avoid, third are going to find other routes, and a third are going to use the detour route. So you just kind of, you're kind of bouncing around, but that's kind of the gist of it.
What's a guesstimate on how long it'll take to shut this down, to do it? Month, 2 months?
2 months.
And to your point, Mr. Mayor, that's going to put commercial traffic on Camp 3 Road where normally they wouldn't.
It's going to put more commercial traffic on there. Yes.
So this is Jenny. There are 2 residents that live on that little stretch that have driveways. I know the Lynn's driveway just recently moved to that. The Miles are on that already. I think it would be good practice to go and have a conversation with them about this because adding it already has such high volume and they're, especially the Miles, their home is so close to the road.
No matter what we do, there's always going to be that public reach out, you know what I mean? So as part of our discussions today, we talked about things like that. You know, people are going to have to be aware that this is going to be the detour. So they're going to have to send out, you know, flyers and saying, hey, this is going to be the detour. It's going to show potentially any road changes, meaning stop signs, or, you know, maybe the stop signs, like I said, on Camp 3 go away and then the stop sign is on Kettle River. We don't know all of those details yet. You know, we're still hypothetically a year and a half away from starting, but it just aids in the decision making and how we're going to do the project.
Yeah, this is Scott. Jim, my thought goes back to what happened on Lake Drive in Lionel recently too with Pine Street and that fiasco down there. My personal opinion is that we use the county roads, which can handle the additional public safety concern with the commercial vehicles. That be the official route. There really isn't much we can do, I don't think, if they're going to not take the detour route and take Camp 3. But I think for public safety reasons, we want to try and make that detour on the larger county roads.
Go ahead.
Well, one of the things that the county did when that was going on Lake Drive is they put up barriers that said local traffic only or something. I mean, granted, there were plenty that didn't pay any attention to that. The other thing they could do is they could close off that section that Miles, I mean, just close it off. And that's going to keep people from, I mean, it will force people to use at least in one direction, force them to use the Broadway.
So some of the other things that we have to consider is the public safety side, as you said, police and fire. So if we start closing off some roads prematurely to divert traffic, then it takes longer for, you know, emergency services to get to where they need to get to as well. So that's obviously some other things that we talk about. But I mean, we just so arbitrarily, we don't want to try to stop traffic from using a road.
But it's going to be closed off anyway. That's my point. I mean,
at some point, yes.
It's going to be closed off anyway. So I'm just thinking that maybe that's a way to protect those residents. And it kind of forces the traffic up on the county roads, as you said, at least in one direction.
Howard Lake Drive will be the next place.
So I don't know. I mean, I feel I would be more comfortable saying, yeah, go ahead and use it if I knew what kind of traffic control they were going to have at Kettle River and Camp 3. Because I think the way it is now, with a lot more traffic trying to scoot across there, even though there's only traffic coming from the north end, it's the traffic from the north end that's so hard to see. So if they're trying to scoot across there to get to Potomac and you got more traffic coming down the north end, I just worry that we're setting up even a more dangerous intersection. But if they have ways to mitigate that, it'd be easier to go with their plan.
I mean, there'll be signage all up and down Kettle River. You know what I mean?
So this is Rob, and I'm just going to jump in. I don't like the fact of it that we use Camp 3 as that, because now what do we got it marked at 30 or 40 miles an hour? These people are going to be in a hurry. They're going to be driving even faster down that road. We already have the people at Camp 3 that are very unhappy with us on what we're doing on closing that road. And they're going to expect that we close that road before we do the project so that that traffic doesn't go their way, right? So I would say Howard Lake, no. But you push them up to Broadway and that's the detour, and put it in the county's court and put it on their cost because it's their project. It's something they want to do so they can use their roads for the detour. That's my take on it.
Or get more information about what they're going to do for traffic control at that intersection.
At this point, we don't know, but
Yeah.
it's all part of the, I think what our thought process is to get your feel for it. And what I'm hearing is a hard no. That's gonna change all sorts of dynamics. So they're not gonna invest a bunch of time trying to figure things out if our intention is not to then the time and effort isn't well spent doing that type of effort and work.
Yeah, and actually this came up at the park the other night. This was the main topic of conversation on what we're doing with that. People on Willamette were concerned, 155th. There was individuals from Camp 3 that are on the Lions. It was like the major conversation piece. Jack jumped in and answered some questions on that, as well as Potomac and truck traffic and speed.
So we've had some conversations internally, citywide. Once this project is done, I will more than likely come to whomever the city council is at that point and probably ask if we can do a no truck route on Camp 3 then. And we have numerous ones around, so that is just going to kind of change anybody trying to skirt through some of those changes. And we could, I'm just going to throw this out there because we're having discussion. We could say no truck traffic on Camp 3, and that diverts a certain amount of the traffic. You know what I mean? Truck traffic has to go a different route, and car traffic can use that as the detour.
You're going to have to coordinate that with the sheriff's department, because even when they were doing Lake Drive and they had the barrier signs on East Rondo and Crossways, there were semis and everything else going down there. And it took Matt parking his butt down there for several hours a day, every day, to kind of start curbing some of that.
Yep. Oh, no, I agree wholeheartedly. It's all about enforcement, all of it.
Yeah.
So no matter what we do, we can say no, right? We want them to use Broadway. They can post that as Broadway. We are still going to have a certain amount of people that are going to drive through there.
Yeah. And so, if you're going to close off a local street, Camp 3 Road, whether there's a detour or not, that's just going to divert traffic onto other local roads. And you talk about the no truck traffic with Howard Lake, and I know Jack and I have had long conversations about this right now. And in full disclosure, I live on Howard Lake. There's a lot of really upset people on Howard Lake because of that 97 detour. There are regular semi trucks going up and down that road, even though it's posted no truck traffic.
Living off that, I can.
And I asked you too, just look at the end of Howard Lake at Kettle River. That's becoming washboard now.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of my review process with the engineer today before this meeting.
Right. So, I think the best we can do is have the county make the detour. And I don't know if we can control every city street where people are going to take shortcuts.
And rightfully so. I mean, we've worked with the state, and we have signage up there that say no through traffic, and, people go through there. And, we've worked with Forest Lake, and Forest Lake was, the police department was pulling over a certain amount of people for some period of time to try to figure out where they lived, to try to enforce the no through traffic. So, I mean, we tried all sorts of things, right? But
yeah,
there's still a crazy number of cars going down that way every day, 1,500, 2,000 cars a day, where, before it was 150, 200.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a huge difference. So.
Yeah. And again, good luck getting traffic enforcement out of Anoka County before 2.
Well, you could probably hire it,
sure.
Hire a deputy, sit down there. But I know that when semis come down Howard Lake Drive, when they see the sign, they're already committed, kind of. They're already
westbound.
They're right there.
Yeah. And I did some legwork with Forest Lake and the state, and neither one of them were willing to allow me to put those signs closer to the bridge. And I've asked again periodically, and you're right. I mean, once they're there, where are they going to turn around? So
is there a way to designate that on whatever GPS system the truckers typically use? I don't know if it's Google or if it's some proprietary thing that truckers can only get on, but it seems like, the ones that are local here would know better, but the ones that aren't, if they're using some sort of navigation system, if there's a way for them, just like your navigation system will tell you if there's a cop ahead or something like that, if it gives them, but sometimes you have to call and
I don't know how that works. I've never.
well, I know like for Google, you have to call them like if you're on a new street or, something like that. I just didn't know if I don't know what truckers use when they're not familiar with
Jim, where would
I do. I can tell you.
Where would you want to put that sign? By Everton?
Before Everton.
I'm not really certain what the Forest Lake roads are, but just as you're coming over the bridge, they need to be in an area where a truck is able to turn and not be committed at that point.
And I think
And
you're right.
there's really not a great place there either, right? So,
but I think Everton, if you do it on the bridge before Everton, which is where all the Knife River trucks go now.
Right.
Most of the time. Sometimes at 3 a.m. they don't, but
right.
That's where they're turning now. Yeah. That would be the ideal place because you get west of Everton, right, Mayor? And now you've got nothing but residential places.
Well, they could turn at that they could turn at Forest Lake because there's no sign there. Is there?
There's probably not, but I
know
mean,
that whip went up real quick.
That's not my intention, is to screw up somebody else's community either. You know what I mean? So it's just a tough spot for us to try to post. And, again, I reach out every year and say, hey, what's the likelihood we can do this? And they really don't have a whole lot of appetite for it. So I just need to wait for somebody to leave and somebody new to come in and then work them over.
Well, we can talk to the mayor over there.
It's more the state.
Is it?
Yeah.
And Councilmember Hegland, to answer your question, truckers do have specific trucker GPSs, but that's not on typically on local street weight restrictions. It's more on height clearances. And even that's not accurate. A trucker's GPS will route you down an actual truck route in Minneapolis under the Broadway Bridge, which isn't high enough. And it's actually a truck route. So
that's
they're not accurate.
Okay.
Okay, so.
There's your answer.
I'm gathering it's a hard no.
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing that I have is Lynn Carver Quinn reached out, and you and I have had, Jennifer and I have had conversations about Davies Tree Service.
Oh.
I've reached out to them twice, and Aaron actually has once as well. I've not heard anything back from them. So I don't know how hard you want me to work at that, but I'm not.
What are you reaching out for them?
At some point, somewhere along the line, they said that they would be willing to donate a tree and plant it at Fall Fest.
Oh, okay.
And I need to replace a tree in the park. So I'm trying to reach out to say, hey, will you just replace the one that we need to replace?
Who are you reaching out to there?
Somebody named Andrea, the name that I got.
It's the contact that Lynn provided us that she's had contact with in her efforts to solicit.
I think that, yes, that specific person, I think, does their community relations, community involvement things, and they potentially wanted to do like some tree saplings for kids at Fall Fest. So they were talking about donating a tree. So I can follow up on that. Personally, I'm trying to avoid any kind of like donations or soliciting anything from them myself, but I can follow up with her or.
I will reach out again tomorrow,
Yeah.
but at this point, I mean, there's been 3 attempts and we've not heard anything. So, maybe she's out this week. Could be all sorts of reasons why, but nevertheless.
I talked to them when they were at Expo, and there were 2 people there. One was a person that we interfaced with, and one was somebody else who gave me their card. It might be the same person you're talking to, but I'll look at the card and see. You said her name is Andrea? Is that right?
I think that's what it is.
All right, I'll look at my card because she was the person that wanted to be contacted if there was anything citywide that we wanted them. Probably is the same person, but maybe it's someone different, and maybe it's someone that might be responsive. So I'll dig through my cards and send it to you. And if it's someone different, you can try that one too.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now we're Jack.
Thank you. At their last meeting or work meeting, we went over the first review of the city general fund budget. You had some questions. We've gone and made some corrections on those. wish to go over those with you and bring you up to speed on where we are.
Jack, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah, I don't know. My ears are tired or something. I can just hear this kind of like.
Is this any better?
Yeah, a little better.
Again, at their last meeting, we went over the first review of the general fund budget. You all had some questions on that in different categories. We went and made some corrections, reviewed, and have some answers for you on those categories. We're also in the process now of developing the capital improvements plan. That's going to be necessary to set what transfers we make for equipment capital budget amounts in some of these categories we have. We're also making some progress too on IT services request and a budget figure for that. We're trying to get a meeting set up with Metro INET. What we originally thought was $100,000 cost now appears to be $57,000, plus there'll be about $14,000 though worth of equipment changes, mostly in changeover to new telephones. So going with that one first under general government, under the first two categories on the categories of computer support and software, and also under contract services. Those figures are not final yet. We hope to have a Zoom meeting set up with Metro INET here within the next week or 10 days. We have another meeting that we're going to set up with Paul Nelson, the gentleman that came and gave us some quotes earlier back last summer. And we're also going to contact another firm in White Bear that does services, IT services for the city of Cambridge. Once we get those, we'll have a better idea of what our budget is, and then we'll send out RFPs. But we'll be able to develop a hard number here, even if we don't have the service contracted. By the time the preliminary budget is set, we'll have a placeholder number that we can use. So again, those two figures there are still in flux. But moving on down to the administrative expenses under workers' compensation, we've been notified that our workers' comp rate is going to be reduced significantly from last year. That'll go across the board to everything in this budget. Mark Remillard is working on getting us those final numbers. He doesn't have them yet, but that'll be a place where we can do some significant reductions in some of those categories. While they're somewhat low, there'll be an aggregate across several of these fund accounts in all of the budget going forward. We've also gone and evaluated the cost of our planning consultant services and think we can drop that down by $4,000 from $16,000 to $12,000.
Which line are you on? I'm sorry.
That would be under administrative services, planner professional.
What's the number? That'll make it easier for me to find.
4180,
Okay, got it. Yep. Yep, thank you. Got it. Yep. So that's Dean.
That's correct. That's Dean. So going through, there weren't any questions on the public works portion of this at this time. The one item that I really want to talk about here is under the Parks 150 fund, which is the maintenance work. That's the one we discussed about maybe just moving that back totally to under public works. We have a budget category in there for the hiring of seasonal employees for next year to assist with the mowing. While we've gotten everything, nothing's.
Thank you. I was just going to say, what page are you on? Yes. All right, got it.
I'm always excited to talk about the budget, so I'll slow down a little bit. So we're looking at proposing to hire seasonal employee or seasonal employees next year. There's 21,000 in that category. But also if you go down to under contract service and lawn care, that's 3170 and 3175. Some of that money will be transferred over into our equipment replacement fund for the mower. And some of it can be used to offset some of the additional public works costs that are going into mowing. The one thing we mentioned before, and I think I've had some individual discussions with everybody, is we just need to put all that under public works. That doesn't really need to be a parks board issue. They should be more concerned and focus on the visions for the parks capital and the parks land fund. So we think we can take some of that $18,500 and $19,000 and come up with some reductions in that and still meet our other cost. One request from the Parks Board was to put a porta potty in the parks for wintertime use for the walkers. We've added that in there at a cost of $900. The other thing we need to talk about too, and this goes back to some of those city goals and things, and we'd like to discuss a little bit more too about having a bigger transfer from the city to the parks. This would be under Park Capital Fund 403. Currently, the city allocates $2,700. The other sources for park funds, projects, parks capital, maintenance, and the parkland dedication is the cell phone revenue that we get, which is about $21,700, I believe, which is split up between those two other capital categories. Aside from that, we depend upon park dedication fees for park sources for revenue and a small amount of permit fees that totaled last year $8,000. All in all, those aren't adequate funds to sustain the park, to keep it up just as it is. So we need to start looking for more sources for that. It probably won't be in this year's budget, but I just wanted to bring it up that we will be proposing some other alternative sources. Another alternative source we'll have is when we get this park master plan finished. That will be one of the essential things that will enable us to be more competitive when we apply for grant funds. Keep in mind too that grant funds, the ones that we're probably going to be most eligible for, will require a 50% grant. So we're also going to need some money too, in some cases, to have that capital to match those grant funds when we apply for those projects. If you'll turn to the water fund, which is on page 9 of 10. As we said before, we had allocated a certain portion of that to wages for the permit coordinator for their work that they do in the building. And we're also still looking for ways that we can transfer some public works personnel to that. As far as making that cash flow, we talked about maybe trying to fund 50% of it. That's something that is somewhat challenging now with the amount of revenue we're taking in. Currently, we're covering all of our operations costs. We're not, and a small amount of our depreciation costs. Adding that much is going to be something we'll have a final on the next meeting to see if we can cash flow by increasing larger transfer of salaries to the water and the sewer account. The EDA fund on the last page of the budget is something we'll bring up to the EDA at their next meeting next Thursday, go over some of those costs. Currently, we have a proposal to include $19,000 of staff salaries under EDA based on our ability to tap into the tourism board tax. I had a discussion with Bill and he said that would be an eligible cost. We'll have to do a few things before 2026 to make that eligible. We'll have to establish a tourism board, and we'll also have to do some resolutions to establish procedures and policies on how that would work. But it does look like the potential for using $19,000 of that for admin costs is a reality. So that's been incorporated in this proposal, and it's been taken off staff salaries on the other side under administrative costs. So those are the things that we're still working on. We hope to have you a more outlined cost in some of these finals at the next council meeting. This will be a subject also for our September 2nd work meeting. Does anybody have any questions on any of the items we've just reviewed or anything in these line items on these account funds?
This is Scott. Can you help me just understand the FICA and the PERA, the 7.5% of 12.5%? Is that the city's contribution?
That's
and
the
the
city's
employers and
That's the city's contribution.
And then the 12.5 is the employer's contribution. Okay.
Oh, isn't the 12.5 the percent of their wages that you're assigning to that fund? Yes.
Yeah.
And of that 12.5, that you're taking the 7.5% of that.
Yep. I understand. Yep.
So Jack, when do you think you'll have an answer on the county HRA question?
We'll probably get most of that done at our EDA meeting, and Tanya West is going to be there, and I'll give you an update on that. We got the most recent account balance report. We currently have $688,000 in that account. That's accounting for the 2025 levy contribution that they did. And just to bring everybody up to speed, we recently found out that the county does a separate levy for Columbus for the county HRA program. They can levy up to, it sounds minuscule, but it's a little less than 0.2%, but that's based on multiplying that by what the taxable market value is in the city, which is over $1 billion. So under those numbers, the amount levied for 2025 was probably somewhere around $180,000. Now, the county keeps 15% of that for admin fees, plus they have that money in their coffers that they sit and use and draw interest on. The other thing is, in accessing those funds, is that we have to apply for use of our own monies. They have to meet certain program criterias. There's an 8-step process for the application and getting those funds for approval for use. We also have a city HRA fund that we levy for. That levy is about 2/3 of what the county's rate is. Currently, it's $120,000 for 2020 this year for 2025. So one of the questions that we need to ask ourselves and answer is, do we want to have 2 HRA levies? If we do away with one of them, that's anywhere from $120,000 to $180,000 a year that wouldn't be assessed to our county residents, depending on which one we choose. The local one we have is based out of the EDA. We have an EDA with HRA powers, so we can do housing projects, redevelopment projects, along with economic development projects. There's more leniency and latitude in the use of those funds as there is with the county fund. The one thing I haven't got an answer for yet is, do we have an opt-out provision with the county? I don't think we do. I'm hoping that I find out I'm wrong. I gave Janet and Ron an example of a previous city that wanted out of that. They had to sue the county to get out of it. So there has been some precedent set on that. Most of the larger cities in the county are not part of that county HRA. I think there's 8 or 9 cities that are participants in it, Columbus being one of them. So we've been being assessed, and we have actually spent money from that account. The only thing that I could find out that was done in 2010, when we requested $85,000 for HRA use for some of the Northwest Quad project. That was done for some feasibility studies. So we're going to hopefully have an answer to that by next Thursday, and then we can decide which direction we want to go. We will still want to do 2 HRA levies or just do one. I don't see any reason to do two, and we just have to pick which one or consider which one we'd like to eliminate if we want to reduce that burden as a tax burden on our residents.
So there's restrictions with the county and there's no restrictions with the cities.
Well, there's some restrictions with the city, but they're not as detailed as they are with the county. The county HRA funds are probably going to be stricter in terms that whatever we do, we're going to have to justify. It's going to stimulate some housing growth, redevelopment, or correction of blighted areas. And just as an example, let's say that we're going to apply for this local road improvements grant for Hornsby Street, which will be, as Brian indicated, submitting. I want to get it in there as soon as it rolls out in September or October. Let's say we're not awarded that. We could potentially use that county money, HRA money, for that road project. And I think we can make a good case on that because it's going to enhance the opportunities and the attractiveness of that site we own. This was the Apollo Harshenko apartment site, the one we're having some discussions now with another developer, because if that's in, it completes that trail segment. The developer we've talked to thinks that's a very important part of that location because it connects to some recreational opportunities up on Clear Lake. There's going to be some places there for fishing and turnouts that's going to make that apartment site more attractive to them and provide some opportunities for residents that live there. So I think we can make the cases for that, but in some places we may not be able to make the case that it's going to stimulate housing if it's just going to be for economic development purposes. Now, if we were able to get out of the county's program, the money we have in that account, though, would go back to the city of Columbus.
Yeah.
Even though it's all in a pool, they have it designated and broken out and accounted for internally for individual accounts for the member cities. So, with that and with our own current HRA account, the current balance in there is $240,000. That does not account for any levy that we would put on that for next year. One of the other things we might consider doing too is, let's say that we get out of the county program, we might want to consider doing a separate individual levy for the EDA, which we could roll into also with whatever we're doing with the HRA levy now. It could be just the same thing. And we currently have it broken out. We need it broken out for accounting purposes, but it might be better just to separate it out itself. It's kind of uncommon for cities to include that in their general budget levy, but it's something we can have further discussion on.
Are we going to have any extra meetings? I feel like time is ticking away. We haven't really done much work on this budget. I mean, much real work. It's really hard to get this the night that you want to discuss it and expect any real discussion on it.
We will make that determination next week, and we may have to have a couple special meetings. We do have until September the 30th to get this into the county. So
I know when it's due to the county. I'm just saying that, so far we've had, 2 discussions on it, but you're getting us the information the night that we're supposed to be reviewing it, and then we don't really talk about it in between. So I'm just a little nervous, that's all.
Well, I think that we'll be able, if we need to call special meetings, we'll do that. And we want to get this HRA thing straightened out, and we can make sure we're not going to be deficient on our dates for submission, and anything you want to discuss on this, we'll make sure we have the appropriate number of meetings to have in-depth discussion on anything that we want to go over. So, does anybody have any questions?
It's always nice to put numbers in the end. It kind of makes you go to sleep.
That's reassuring, Rod.
I don't have any questions. Anybody else have any questions?
And the other thing too, what Ron mentioned earlier about the fire board meeting, the big ticket item that they had on their budget, the ladder truck, was scheduled for 2031. We had all of our capital budget stuff set up to meet that because that was going to be a $3.2 million purchase, with our share being somewhere around $600,000. So if that's moved back to 2038, there's things that we will adjust in that, though, to account for it, which will lower our requirement for the set aside for our capital assets. One other thing, too, I'd like to ask a question on. We briefly discussed it last time. On the first page, under administrative expenses, under ordinance and comp plan, we talked about setting aside some money for the future 2050 comp plan that we'll have to start work on in 2028, which sounds like a long way away, but it's not that far away, and it's something that's going to cost. We're going to probably start the ticket at $50,000 to $60,000. So do we want to start setting some money aside for some of that so we don't have to bear all the burden when we start that process in 3 years?
As far as I know, we were setting money aside. So Cheryl, do you know how much is in that fund? Is there anything in that fund? I mean, I remember talking about this at least a couple of.
We were setting money aside, and then was it 2023 when a lot of the ordinances were revised? I know that was a big project. We actually overspent. If you look at the disbursements for the comp ordinance amendments, if you go down and you're on page 1, and it's 100, 4,100, 3530. So, oh, that's not.
2022, maybe?
So in 2022, we were a little over budget. Where did I pull that number? You know, Janet, I don't want to say. I'm going to run those numbers and I'll have those for you.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
I'll do a
I mean, I
detailed
know that the
report.
practice was putting money aside, you know, each of the 10 years prior to when that thing was due, so that we weren't like trying to come up with $100,000 at the end of the day.
Yes.
But I just, you know, the part that's hard about a lot of this is that you don't know what any kind of carry forward is. So when you start talking about how much to put aside, that, you know, for something like that, that makes a difference. If we had adequate or close to adequate funds there, I wouldn't want to put a lot of money aside. But obviously, I also don't want to pay this big, you know, this big amount out when the work starts to happen. So that's why it's hard to just look at the expense side of things. It's, and I know that that's harder for you, but sometimes knowing if there's, you know, knowing what the carry forward is in these funds would really be helpful.
So if you look at your sheets, I know 2021 on, those are all actual correct numbers for the actual disbursements. So if you look at the ordinance comp plan disbursements for 2021, it was $14,759.80. And then if you see, we budgeted 20,000, so we would have, you know, like 5,500 left there.
But I don't know what the carry forward is prior to 2021. I mean, so.
And we're going to make a best guess.
Yeah.
Because I know you hired me on in 2022 and we did a lot of work to clean all of this up. I could spend the next year going back, digging, you know, looking at all of the paper. I can tell you with certainty, I'm not a best guess girl, but this is the best I'm going to get for you. There's just not enough hours in the day. And even then, I don't know how accurate we would be. There was a lot of corrections. There was a lot of moving expenses around. So if we just go from 2021 forward, we look at what we budgeted, we look at what we actually expended, that's going to be what our carry forward is. That's the best I can do for you, Janet.
So there's no way for you to go into Banyan and pull up these funds, which should all have if there's cash in there, you should be able to see how much cash is in
I
that
can pull
fund.
up our fund balance
Yeah.
in Fund 100.
So you can't drill down to this level. Is that what you're telling me?
No, you cannot.
Oh, that is so stupid. That is-
Well, our basic accounting principles is fund accounting, right? And so most of the time they're concerned with what do we have in our general fund? What do we have in our special funds? Maybe a long time ago, when the accounting system was set up, I think Emmy was still here. Maybe that would have been an option, how our fund accounting is set up. We do not drill down to detail to get carry forward. It rolls up to our fund balances because that's what we're required to monitor.
So you could tell us what the fund balance is in Fund 100,
Yes.
not anything less, not even like Fund 100, 4110 or 41.
I can go back and I believe we are fairly accurate now. So when I tell you in Fund 100, generally we're not going to have a carry forward that many years because our expenses, they go up, they go down. So I feel fairly confident. That's why I went through and I updated this whole worksheet with 21, 22, 23, 24 actuals so that we have good, accurate numbers. So you can see where there's fluctuations. You can see, where our expenses are, basically flat. They remain the same throughout all of the years. And then I did the revenue and expenditure year-to-date report through June. And I can resend that out. We can make copies of that again to give you a really a firm foundation so you can see where we are halfway through the year for 2025. I was trying to provide the most information that I could so that you can make accurate decisions. The other thing that I will have my laptop up and running next time. I can run reports if you want me to. We can dig in. And if you want to schedule a special budget report, then maybe, or a budget session, maybe we should do that. We can spend 4 or 5 hours and really dig into everything if you want to. Whatever you need, but these sheets, I've gone through them. All of the numbers are accurate. I've reviewed them a couple of times. The comp plan, how those were rolled together, Janet, I will dig in to that detail. I will pull those apart for you. It was dependent upon if it was planning commission, if it was a city ordinance. So there could be variances in how those were actually coded for expending, but I will dig through and I will get you an audit detail report for next time for the comp ordinance plan expenses.
Well, I mean, if what you're saying is true, that you can go back to the 2021 as actual and budgeted amounts are right, then there should be about $47,000 of cash still in there.
Yes.
So, I mean, if it's as simple as doing that, I mean,
Yes.
and I know that these look like a spreadsheet, but maybe they're not really spreadsheets that you can just insert a column and do that math for all of this all going across. But if that was an ability to do that, you could just add a column that said estimated carry forward, and that would give us the information for each of these, approximately what, if any, cash is in there. So then it would be a lot easier to determine how much we should put in. And if you're feeling like, oh, that's a little too dicey because I can't, I mean, but that's always been the struggle with doing this is that,
I can give estimated, I'll update this and I'll try.
Yeah, I don't want
And
you
if
to
I
spend-
fail
I don't want you to
miserably,
spend
I'll let
tons
you
of
all
time.
know.
But if it's easy to just do that one calculation to kind of give us a ballpark figure, that I think that'd be immensely helpful.
And, assuming that's correct and there's $47,000 in there, if we wanted to set aside $100,000 for that, then what we have here is a pretty accurate figure. You need to do approximately a little less than $20,000 a year because it's only 3 years away. So we just have to come up with what we want to set aside, and then we could reflect and change that figure that's there in this column now.
Well, and I think the other question is, do you want to do it like we've done it in the past, which is bringing in specialized planner to walk us through the process, or do you want to try to, I mean, that costs a lot of money to do that.
It does, and in some cases, though, it depends on what your workload is. I think this is one case where there's going to have to be some consulting services engaged in this. You know, hopefully by 2028, we'll have some more internal capacities to do some of that work ourselves. But I think we're going to have to count on probably just a rough guess, you know, having half of it maybe done by consulting work. At least the big half, some of the data gathering stuff that they have more access to information than we do. So we'll just have to see where we are at that point.
Well, if you're having heart attacks about what we're spending on the HR consultant, you'll really have heart attacks when you see what this is going to cost.
I get it. Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, as we sit here and go through this, I'm trying to ballpark that math in my head as we're talking. I mean, certainly if you add cell C1 minus cell C6 equals this, yeah, it's that simple. Okay, I get it. It's helpful.
Thank you for putting this all together again and sticking it out until whatever time it is, 9:30.
The next iteration of this that we have will be much more detailed than what we have here. We'll be able to hopefully get all those other numbers assembled, and it'll be a much clearer picture. It's coming together fairly well. There's some things, like I said, some things have been late getting in, especially on the fire board was a little late. The insurance stuff is normally not due in September. We're pushing them to give us some numbers. So hopefully we'll have all those assembled and ready to go and roll it out for much more detailed and getting close to finished report the next time we have this discussion.
I would actually prefer it if we could schedule a workshop dedicated to budget, and if we could start at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we could just dedicate our evening to that. That would be great.
And it's actually really helpful if you can throw your questions out there up front, so we have time to think about them, you know, and I think it'll be a lot more efficient. Especially after, an all-nighter like we're having tonight, it's hard to even think about this in any sort of.
Yep.
Okay, ready to move on? We got a plan? Item number E, and announcements and reminders, Anoka County Sheriff's Office Scam Prevention Workshop, Safeguard Your Savings, East Bethel, Our Savior Lutheran Church at 19001 Jackson Street Northeast, Thursday, August 14th. 2025 at 10 a.m. and Wednesday, August 20th, 2025 at 5 p.m. No registration is required. Planning Commission meeting, August 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. EDA meeting, August 21st, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. City Council meeting, August 27th, 2025 at 6 p.m.
I would like to add one comment to that, especially on that first notification of that workshop that the sheriff's office is going to have. We got an email today, a request to do a wire transfer of $49,000. And Cheryl came to me and says, "What's this for?" And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." She said, "Well, it's the email you sent to me." And so we got back and looked at it, and nope, it's a scam. So this is 3 times in 3 weeks we've been associated with some of this stuff. So everybody really needs to keep their guard up and look at things. It's like the email that somebody sent that came from you that they wanted to call. So the scamming business must be good because they're very active out there now.
Yeah, it seems like there's an uptick in phishing emails lately. Yeah.
Well, good call not to pay it.
Yeah.
Good job, Chief.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Scott, second.
We got a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. Take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, aye.
Rob, aye.
Ron, aye. Meeting's closed at 9:29 p.m.